Morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's 9 o'clock. I want to call this meeting to order. This is the second special called workshop meeting of the Commissioners Court of Hood County. Today is Thursday, March 18th, 2021. It's 9 a.m. We're in the Century Jury Room at 1200 West Pearl Street in Granbury, Texas. And today we have a bunch of distinguished firefighters in our community. Welcome all. And I want to get started right away. I'm going to have to leave at 10 o'clock because I got another meeting I've got to go to that's been scheduled for a good while. And I wanted to hear from Chief Ron Becker of Crescent, because here's a guy that's been working with ESDs and county fire and everything else. I just wanted to see what he had to say. So, Chief Becker, would you please come up here and give us your version of the pros and cons of an ESD district, please?
All right, Judge and Commissioners, I think y'all know I'm here because you asked me to be here. I live in Parker County. I can't vote for any of you, and I can't pay, I guess I can contribute, but I can't pay taxes to any of you over here. I am the fire chief right now for the Crescent Volunteer Fire Department. I'm on Crescent City Council, which obviously Hood County's the biggest part of the city of Crescent. And that's the two connections besides knowing you guys that I have over here too. The geography of Crescent is oddball. I nickname it the Crescent Curse. My fire department goes into 4 counties, Parker, Tarrant, and Johnson counties have chosen to go the ESD route. Tarrant and Johnson County years ago were countywide rural fire protection districts. So if you're going to be a fire department serving in those areas, you're going to be contracted with the ESD that's been there through the 50s and whatever. Parker County is a little more different because while one part of Parker County also had an old rural fire protection district that has since grown into being the large ESD up there, ESD 1, all the other ESDs were kind of new ones that came along afterwards. And Parker County took the stance, as former Judge Riley basically said, they elected that they wanted their county to get, and his exact words to me and many others was, we want our county to get out of the fire department business. So if you're going to be a fire department in Parker County and you're going to find yourself associated with an ESD, which is fine. Let me tell you, these ESDs can work just fine. All the ones that I work with, the commissioners on them are dedicated people. They're doing everything they can to try to do things the very best that they know how. They serve in an unpaid role, and they don't get any pats on the back, because who's going to go up to a commissioner and say, thank you for being the guy that charges me taxes and stuff like that. So my hat is really off to them. And they're talented people. They really are. Anyone that wants to stand up here and say ESDs are inherently bad or something like that, that has not been my experience. They can work, and they do. And so it seems to me kind of what you guys are faced with is, are you going to start going down kind of the Parker County road where you decide to start to provide county fire service from individual or perhaps even a countywide ESD, and that road will probably lead you to saying that you're going to, as a county, get out of the fire department business, or are you going to continue on the path that Hood County has been in for quite a number of years? And that's y'all's decision. you're the ones that's gonna make that call. There is no doubt that if you choose the farmer, you'll reap several benefits. The money that you're spending on fire departments, you can move and do other things with it. And Ken here, pointed out last time that he talked, you probably got sheriff's places to spend money and stuff like that. If your conscience lets you do that, that's fine. It's essentially a tax increase that you didn't have to tell anybody about because you shoved the tax load of the fire departments over to the ESD. People's tax bills go up a little bit, and you just take that money and do something else with it. And it's appealing. And of course, if the experience that I've seen in these other counties holds true, you will find lots of other ways where you can try to move costs over to the ESDs, whether it be dispatch costs or things like that. All three of these other counties now run a separate fire alarm dispatch that the ESD taxpayer pays to operate. So there's some appeal to you, honestly, for going the ESD route. And I sit on a city council where we're trying to pinch pennies, and I can understand that. So that is certainly not the end of the world if that's the road you choose to take. On the other hand, if what you're going to do is decide that you want to continue to provide fire service to the citizens of Hood County the way that we historically have been, and Hood County is different, I think we know that, different than a lot of other places because the commissioners' courts, this one and previous ones, have chosen to try to support the fire service with targeted expenditures in areas that that we have to have, vehicle insurance, things like that, and have done much more of a job of supporting fire departments than I think probably some of these others were. Certainly more than what Parker was when it transitioned onto the ESD road. And, I'll go ahead and just tell you, obviously ESDs have been a good thing for the Crescent Fire Department. And I would be better poised to say funding from other counties, whatever road they choose to take, although these other three have chosen the ESD road, has been a good thing for the Crescent Fire Department. There's no doubt about that. Funding from anywhere is good for a fire department. If one of you guys is headed into Benbrook and you go across the railroad tracks in Crescent and you get about 1,000 yards past the railroad track, you're in Johnson County and here comes a truck and he runs into you and you have a wreck, I can tell you the first truck that we're sending to you is coming from the station in Hood County, Rescue 30. The two closest firefighters, one of them lives in Hood County. He got his EMT through Johnson County program. The second one lives with Johnson County. They're the two that will probably be there for you first. On the truck comes a truck that has rescue tools on it that were bought by Tarrant County. And the truck will get there because here in the last year it had to have a major repair done that came out of the Hood County repair budget. Then, like happens in Crescent, the train's going to come across right behind there, so the next truck that's going to come is going to come from the Parker County side, probably the tools on it to cut your wife out the other side of the door, or we got them from Firehouse Subs. The hose that's on that truck came from Tarrant County. The radios that we're going to be talking on are provided by Johnson County, so, we're an egg that you can't unscramble. And it has played very well for all the counties. Each county contributes approximately what it costs to serve their area to us. And we're a better fire department because of the funding from different counties, as you can see, because we can lever that to do other things. Now, has Hood County kept up? Reasonably well. Tarrant County supports, if you take the tax base that's in Crescent's area of Tarrant County, and you look at what Tarrant County supplies to the Crescent Fire Department, it's just under 3 cents per $100 valuation. So Tarrant County is a 2 to 3 cent deal as it applies back to us. Barker County, we're a contracted department with ESD 6. What we're getting from them is somewhere in the range for the tax base that's in our area, 4 to 5 cents. And depending on how you want to run your Hood County numbers and how you want to address the fact that you've got the refurbs going on for the trucks, and you just spent money on the 700 radios and stuff like that. If my back of envelope numbers are right, Hood County's running somewhere 3 to 4 cents, depending on how you adjust for Jeff's numbers and all. So as it stands today, from the Crescent perspective, looking exactly what it's taking to run a volunteer fire department, you guys don't have to sit here and feel real ashamed that you haven't been doing your part. The Hood County reasonably has. No one doubts, though, that all of us are starting to run ragged. The increase in our calls for service, and you guys were good enough to hold a workshop with us, whatever it was, 6 months ago or something like that, and we showed you how much more work your volunteer fire departments are doing. That's not going to quit. And so if you choose to kind of keep supporting your fire departments the way that you historically have been, well, I'd be remiss to say that you might as well just get ready, because we're going to have to ask you for more and more and more stuff. You know, everything we asked for you at that workshop meeting, you guys came through with. Now, probably we didn't ask for as much as we should have, but that's the truth. And so I do not have any qualms if the Crescent Fire Department has a need that I think is appropriate to be funded individually for Hood County, to talk to Jeff and come here to you guys and say, here's the need that we have. But the growth is going to be here. Crescent is a little bit unique from other fire departments in that, you know, all of us do a large percentage of our calls to be EMS first responder calls. And I can tell you, when I price it out, an EMS call costs us a fifth of what a fire call costs to take care of. You just don't need a bunch of trucks. You don't need a bunch of people and stuff like that. And we're unique in that, like if you go this year, year to date, I looked at it just a few days ago, in Hood County, only 35% of our calls so far this year have been EMS type calls. Department-wide, 40%. So from that standpoint, we're a little more costly fire department to run than someone that may be running 80% EMS calls and all, because they just don't cost as much to take care of. So basically, you guys get the choice and have been asked, basically, in my opinion, to make the choice. Do we keep doing what we've been doing, recognizing that what we've been doing is going to have to step up and increase as the county gets bigger? And that's not any news to you. You know, you've got the sheriff telling you, I've got more work to do. You've got a jail telling you, we got more people to hold. We just be here singing another stanza on the same hymn. Or do you choose to go the ESD route? Now, what you've asked me to do today, and I will do my best for it, is to tell you some of the things that I think you need to consider if you choose to go the ESD route. You are charged with determining what issues are present if you approve an ESD election, and you are charged with, if you want to, coming up with orders or whatever that address those issues. And my experience, some of these issues are not big issues, some can be big issues. ESDs, county governments, like anything else, the organization isn't what makes it work, it's what the people do that are in it, and any organization can be made to work. Your question is the ESD organization appropriate at this time, I think, for County. So if it's all right with y'all, I'll rattle through some of the issues that I have observed just as a fire chief with ESDs, and my suggestion to you would be that these are issues that it would be fair to the departments that are thinking they would like to go this route. It would be fair to the voters, and it would be fair to the other departments, that these things get addressed a little bit up front, as opposed to being things that you get down the road and they keep popping up. Now, Ken used several examples of ESD situations when he spoke here a few weeks ago. And part of the reason why I think it's important for you guys to consider looking at these things and getting ahead of them rather than being behind them is he repeatedly referred to the beginning of Parker County ESD 6, the one that Crescent is contracted with. And ESD 6 has wonderful administration, great commissioners, and all like that. But when it was birthed back in 2007, there were a lot of issues that maybe, and this is just me guessing, maybe had they been addressed up front, could have avoided a lot of turmoil that happened once the thing got going. Ken told you that thing ended up with, it started out with 3 departments coming, asking the Parker County Commissioners Court, Pharmacy and ESD, and they did. One of the departments was Crescent. Crescent's just got along fine. We've done our part with them, but the other 2 departments, they had their leadership, and I'm not here to take up for their leadership because I'm not so sure that that's really, I mean, their leadership had flaws and had strong points, but when they found out that the commissioners of this ESD were going to run things and not them, all sorts of friction developed. And the ESD was forced to basically say, we're not going to work with these 2 volunteer departments and create their own thing behind it. They had court case arguments. Ken can probably tell you better about them than I, about who owns stations, who owns trucks. At one time, one of the brush trucks from one of them sit out here east of Hood County, east of Granbury, with a big for sale sign on it, till they got that stuff straightened up. And the bad part about it was when all the dust settled from those 2 fire departments, which whether they were good ones or bad ones is neither here nor there was one volunteer that chose to go and associate himself with the new ESD department. And that forced that ESD, and if I'd been a commissioner, I'd have been in exactly the same shape. That forced that ESD to have to try to scramble money together. They're charged with protecting people, and they got one guy that came over. Yeah, they've inherited some stations and whatever. They got top-notch leadership, experienced leadership, but it forced them to have to start paying firefighters to try to cover part of that. And the end result is that even today, as recently as the last couple of months, even though they got a wonderful compensation program and everything to try to man their calls, sometimes it works beautifully, and other times they're just really, really short-handed on the personnel side. I'm fond of saying the biggest asset we've got at Crescent is our volunteer firefighters' time. I believe that, and I'm very sympathetic to the challenges that ESD 6 has on trying to man their situations, and I would suggest that perhaps some of that could have been avoided if some of this stuff had been considered right up front and everybody knew what the ground rules were at the start, and maybe some of that could have been avoided. I don't know. But I would suggest to you that voters that anyone that's involved in this thing deserves to know what, to the best you can, how you're going to view that this thing's going to work down the road if you choose to do it. Okay, number one, just consider that if an ESD is created, it's there forever. Commissioner Andrews asked Ken last time, well, if this thing is a bomb, how do you get out of it? And he related a story. The statute's pretty clear. 10% of the registered voters in the district have to petition the ESD commissioners to dissolve the thing, which means that, first of all, you got a high hurdle on your petition, way more higher hurdle than what it takes to get one of these things put together. And then you have to come along, and it's the ESD board, not you guys, that decides, well, do we even put this thing up for a vote? So, and I want to say, I have a lot of respect for Ken, and you know, he helps on a lot of these other ESDs that I'm associated with. And when he was up here talking for whatever it was, 5 hours or 10 hours the other day, he really didn't say anything factually that I disagreed with. And he wasn't pulling the wool over your eyes. The things are complicated. You know, it took him that long to try to explain the thing, and they just are that complicated. But these things are there pretty well forever. And that automatically brings an accountability question into play. You guys are elected. ESD commissioners are appointed. You will appoint them. And that's basically, practically, the control from any elected official that you have over an ESD is who you choose to appoint as commissioners. And that can raise some challenges. I won in Johnson County a few years ago. They had a big county debate, can we remove a commissioner? Well, you can, but he's got to have really been a bad guy. You know, you can't remove him just because you don't like the tax rate that he's voted for or something like that. And probably the best example is back in 2013, and some of y'all have asked me questions outside of here, and I erred in answering one of your questions where I pointed out that there's language in the statute that talks about the Commissioner's Court having the authority, if you choose to basically take over and run an ESD, set tax rates and adjust policies and all. Well, in 2013, out in El Paso County, the county commissioners came to the legislature and said, look, there's not enough accountability, and so the language that I was misreading only applies to El Paso County, but it says that their county commissioners, if they choose to, can void virtually any action that the ESD takes. They can set policies, they can approve the budget, all like that. But that only applies to El Paso County. And I don't really know why they had to do that, but I can tell you this because I looked it up. The thing, that little addendum to the bill passed unanimously in 2013 by the state Senate, and it passed the state House with one dissenting vote. So it would suggest that if that's any barometer, that there, at least in that instance, was a recognition that there needed to be a little bit different accountability to people that are directly answerable to the voters than some appointed official. Tax levels will obviously be a big issue. And like I said, you know, my Tarrant ESD right now taxes at 8.19 cents. The Parker ESD is at 9.5 cents, and Johnson County is at 6 cents. I'm familiar with the Johnson County situation in that when they voted, their ballot language said this is created up to, and you can charge a tax rate of up to 6 cents. And so Johnson County is not authorized to go up to the full ad valorem cap that's in the Constitution of 10 cents, and they're running at a 6-cent rate. They are fixing to be on the ballot this May for a sales tax to augment that, because they got the same growth challenges that everyone else has. But that ESD is run, it used to be at 3 cents years ago, and then there was an election to go to 6 cents. And all I know is that all the ESD ballots votes that I've been associated with have stipulated for the voters what tax rate it is that you're voting on, whether it be the full 10 cents or whether you're voting for a sales tax deal or not. And I would suggest that voters deserve to know on a ballot, this is what I'm voting for. A challenge that is inherent with ESDs, and especially is a big challenge in Parker County, is finding people to do these commissioner jobs. I mean, like I say, it's kind of a thankless job, because you sit up there, you've got fire departments saying, I need this, I need this. You got your neighbors saying, what are you charging me this tax rate for? And so when you go the Parker County rate of a lot of individualized ESDs, you got a lot of commissioners you have to find. My county commissioner in Parker County the other day was telling me, he says, this is a pain in the butt. We have to come up with 30 different ESD commissioners. Now, I haven't done the math. I don't know how many he has to come up with. And these people burn out, or they move away or something. ESD 6 that I'm in has, I think, had 15 commissioners that are no longer commissioners, because, that just changes. And I'm going to have to tell you, getting qualified people to do this type of volunteer work, it's not like you just put a sign out in front and 20 good ones line up. And so if you choose to go the Parker County rate way with the little individual ones, recognize that you've got a challenge of finding and keeping 5 years from now, 10 years from now, the kind of commissioners that you might want. ESDs can adopt a fire code. That's always when I stand here as a fire chief or stand next to our fire marshal, I'd say, yay, give us a fire code, But when I sit on the city council, I know the politics of putting these additional requirements onto certain types of construction. If you go the ESD route, you can have a fire code for, there's limitations on what the fire code can do if it conflicts with a county one or stuff like that. But there's nothing that stops your ESD commissioners from putting a fire code in for one little area, then a fire code for another one, and however they choose to do it. It's not real often that they do that, but I know that it's a real issue for us up in Parker County, and there's a premier ESD in Parker County, ESD 1, and I know that they have, I don't know if they'll ever do it, but they certainly have agenda item before discussion on whether they create a fire code for their section of the county. There's an issue a little bit on how you plan to coordinate things with your existing fire marshal's office. Tarrant ESD does what I think is personally a pretty smart thing. ESDs usually have like an executive director or someone that's in charge of running the thing. And in Tarrant County, that's the county fire marshal. The county kind of wins because the ESD pays the county for the fire marshal to be the director of that ESD. In that county, their legal representation is their county attorney's office, and they take a little of the ESD funding to subsidize the county attorney working that. The other ESDs that I'm with have hired Ken to do that, and obviously he probably knows way more about ESD law than theirs do, but it seems to work for them. And, you know, the way that we are today, yeah, my fire department, when it's operating in Hood County, it's its own entity, but I'm not going to clash with him. If he comes to me and he says, look, you guys should be doing this, I'm going to listen real close to it. If I go to Parker County today, I will tell you, when I go to the Parker County Chiefs meeting, the fire marshal is there, which there's nothing wrong inherently with it. If he has something he wants the fire departments to do, he's got to kind of sell it to them, because he's not in the same position as this man is to stand up here in front of you and say, Crescent Fire Department is really screwing this up, guys, and y'all need to rethink your relationship with them. So there's a little bit of an issue there, I think, that will be healthy to straighten out. We didn't straighten it out really in Parker County. It hasn't been a big issue, but it does exist. The county equipment ownership thing is a tough nut. The language that's in the statute doesn't really seem to me to be addressing a situation like Hood County, where the county has invested in our fire departments with equipment and everything. The statute language, I think, more is written to talk about the ESD 6 type of situation, where that says, yeah, let's face it, if Crescent Fire Department goes out of business, it's not right for us to take fire trucks and sell them, have a big barbecue. Those fire trucks exist to take care of people. That's what they need to be doing. And, but y'all are in a little bit of a different situation, because you have been such people to kind of step up and supply equipment to them. And the actual language in the statute is kind of spooky as to how it reads. Because there are some people that take the position, man, if county repair, you know, if ESD repair money goes into a truck, then this statute says the ESD owns it. Now, I think that's an extreme position, and I can't imagine us getting into that tiffy, that type of a fight, but you read the language and it's a little bit scary. And nobody would suggest to you that the thing that needs to be done to any fire department that's going in an ESD is to hurt our citizens by saying, we're going to pull out this equipment. But you've got this kind of difficult clause in the statute that you've got to come to grips with. Parker County worked it by just finally giving up, throwing their hands up, and they just signed all their equipment over that they had given their trucks. They just donated them to the ESDs. But of course, they were on the road saying, we're washing our hands of fire department service and we want to get out of it, so here you go. And work through that issue that way. But you've got other, you're gonna, if you go the route where you've got individualized ESDs, you've got to decide, well, what about your other county support, subsidies and all? And there's two sides to that coin. I will tell you, the Parker County's argument, and they quit subsidizing anything that was in an ESD, was the words they used was, people are being taxed double. I'm not so sure that was right, but that was the words that they used. They said, you're paying the ESD tax, so we're not going to also take tax money from the county and put it into your fire department. On the flip side, the way we've operated up till now in Hood County is you guys have provided us a kind of base operating amount, and each of our departments has the ability to try to augment that as best we can. And however we augment it, whether it's the comm plantation, homeowner, HOA checkoff thing, or fish fries or whatever, that goes with the department. And so you can look at the ESD as being very similar to that, where, okay, if this department wants to augment its fire service by having additional ESD monies, we ought to keep treating them just the same as we do any other fire department, then add to it. I don't know what the right answer is to that, but I would suggest that my guys here with these fire departments and everyone else deserves to know where you're going to come down on that sooner than later. I mentioned several county functions. Eventually, there'll be a county commissioner that will start to say, well, if we got ESDs over here, why are we paying for their dispatch function or things like that? So anything that you're paying for that you support the fire service with, I think we all deserve for you up front to say, this is the way we plan to keep doing it. If you're going to quit paying it, tell them. If you're going to keep it just like it is, tell them, so that the voters and the people that are going to have to run this thing know up front where you are. The last thing that I will touch on, of course, you got the city interface issues, and those pretty well get addressed with the way the statute's written. You'll hear arguments that ESDs will help your ISO rating and lower your insurance costs and all. And Ken was 100% right the way that he addressed that here the other day. He said, I would never suggest that, and I'll paraphrase him here when he's sitting here, but he would say that would not be the way that I would try to convince people to think an ESD ought to be the way, because it's a real complicated thing as to which insurance companies pay attention to that and which don't, and when, and if you base it on an ISO rating, that half an ISO rating is your water supply, so you could argue if that's where you want to go. Ken used the example last time, say, well, maybe I'll put your money into putting in fire hydrants rather than fire departments. So I guess I'll be kind of a jerk on that. I'd say if someone tells you, like some people have on trying to tout ESDs, you'll save more on your insurance than your tax will go up, I'd say, okay, great. Sign me an agreement that says if that doesn't happen with me, you'll dig in your pocket and make the difference up. And if they're willing to step up and do that, then I would listen to that argument. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't do much for it. Let me address the last thing that a lot of times causes people to struggle with the ESD concept, and it has to do with this concept of do you want volunteer firefighters or paid firefighters? And too many times we get in our corners and volunteers say you're just trying to take away what we do. Paid firefighters try to say, oh no, I've got this certification, so I'm the only one that can do this, and neither of those corners is correct. We need to do what's best for the people to get the right kind of service. Most ESDs, and there are ESDs that are very wealthy ESDs. Relatively speaking, the Parker County ESD one's relatively wealthy with like an $8 or so million budget. But most ESDs, once you fund the basic operational needs, not personnel needs, but operational needs of the volunteer fire department, we'll find somewhere in the range, like I was quoting, 4 to 6 cents of your ad valorem tax that you're collecting needs to go for keeping the lights on and running the trucks and things like that. And most of them then find out that what's left over struggles to take a fire department and totally convert it from a volunteer department to a career paid department. Some have enough money where it can do it, but most don't. That's the dilemma on ESD 6 up there. They're taking about 3 cents of their property tax money and devoting it to personnel costs, salaries and things like that. But it doesn't go far enough for them to adequately staff for what they're asked to do, so then they find themselves relying on volunteers at part of the time, and that's a very difficult thing to pull off. I've got a good friend who was a fire chief of a suburban Houston area, started being the fire chief in his early 20s, just now retired. Like everywhere else, it's boomed, and his fire department is now a career fire department. It's an ESD and all like that. And he and I were talking about how do you mix in paid firefighters and volunteer firefighters, and how did his transition go? And he said, boy, let me tell you, if I had it to do over again, here's what I'd do. I would have saved up a bunch of money, and I would have just said, okay, on January 1st, there's no more volunteer firefighters, they're all career firefighters, because the meshing is a real challenge. I can tell you that I know today in one of your adjoining counties of a fire department that has paid guys during the day and volunteers in the evening. Volunteers show up at the station, they sit out in the parking lot in their cars until the paid guys go home to come in. I'm not trying to say either side's right, I'm just saying that's what you force someone to have to deal with when you try to mesh it. I can tell you that I know another fire department in our area, in one of your adjoining counties, that has put on a skeleton paid fire department staff, and within the last month, their entire officer corps has tendered their resignation. So don't think that meshing these two together is easy, because people are not robots. It sounds good. You'll do this, you'll do this, but people are not robots, and you know, you have to find the right button to push on each one. Now, some of you know me, some of you don't, but I'll be honest with you. When I retired 15 years ago, I was 52 years old. The company I was running at that time that I was president of was a $10 million company. I had 35,000 employees. I've been through Harvard's advanced management program. The biggest threat to Crescent Fire Department is I do not know how, that I am not capable of meshing volunteers and paid people together and causing our fire department to continue to be as effective as it is. I'm sure there are people that are smarter than me that can do it, but that's my background, and I don't know how to do it. Or I certainly don't know how to stand up here in front of you and say I know how to do it. So you must understand that if it works like a lot of other places where 4 to 6 cents of an ad valorem tax is adequate to kind of fund the non-personnel side of a volunteer fire department, that there's money left over. And most ESDs find themselves using that additional money to go down the semi-paid route and pulling it off. There are way more examples of it not working where you try to pull it off than there are where it works. And you will always find chiefs that will tell you, yeah, I pulled it off. When you go ask the guys, you'll get a little bit different story. So my objective today for you was to try to do what several of you have asked me to do before this. I've tried to run through what I think some of the issues are that I would suggest you need to consider. And you do have to understand that if what you do is you're going to go the ESD route, you are going to create another layer of government. And Ken suggested last time, right off the top, 6 to 10% of the tax money that comes in is going to go to administratively run the thing. There will be some money, there is money that has to go to administratively run an ESD, and that's got to come out of taxpayers' pockets. If you choose to keep doing what you're doing, enhance it appropriately. By and large, the taxpayers are not asked to fund that additional administrative cost that comes with an ESD. I personally am a bigger fan of what I've seen in Tarrant and Johnson County, where it's a countywide ESD, because I've seen that lowers the administrative load somewhat and spreads it out a little bit more. And, you know, Ken, when he was talking about stuff down in Travis County, was kind enough to offer the opinion last time that, you know, in retrospect, probably Travis County would have been better off if they had fewer but bigger ESDs. And I would share his opinion based on what I have observed, both with the Parker County, where we've got one big one and then several small ones, and with the Johnson and Tarrant County, where they are countywide. And with that, I hope that I have reasonably addressed many of the questions that you guys have asked me outside. I'm not trying to sell this thing one way or the other. I hope I'm not. It would be unfair to say that I don't have an opinion. Sure I do. But I hope what I said here today was trying to do the best I know how to give you both sides of the coin and what you're looking at both ways. And to the extent that I may have sounded like I was on one side or the other on some of it, I apologize. But I was just trying to lay it out for you the way that I see it.
I certainly appreciate it. Does anybody have any comments or questions of Chief Becker? Okay.
There's one thing that you mentioned, and that was, can we stand here and say that the county will continue to fund at the current level the double taxation thing that you had mentioned there? That's an agreement written on a napkin, because it's only good until the next set of commissioners and county judge comes in, and that's I don't know as though we could necessarily even address that. This court could give an answer to that, but in 2 years that may completely change.
Well, I think that's true on anything that the court does. Mm-hmm. That doesn't relieve you of the responsibility of answering it on your watch.
Yep.
So.
I do appreciate you coming in here, Chief Becker, and you know, you made some excellent points, and you know, one of the things that you mentioned, and I've heard other people say this, that you know, it's just the way it is. It's not an argument for or against something, but I think it is an easier route for an elected official to say, yeah, let's just get out of the fire department business and create this, let this ESD happen. If the voters voted in, fine. But tax money, you know, tax money is tax money. Whether it's the ESD is the one on its face that's charging the tax, or the county is taking it through the county ad valorem tax, it's still coming out of the same pockets, no matter who's taking it. And so that's kind of a smoke and mirrors a little bit. That's kind of a cop-out for an elected official to just, to me, just say that that's your sole reason for transferring the responsibility. I know that back in, and I'm just going to give an example here. Back in 10 years ago, we went through a tremendous period of drought, and people began becoming very concerned with our water supply. Groundwater, surface, of course, surface water was gone. I mean, the lake dried up to nearly nothing. And at that moment in time, it was argued to bring in and to join, basically the state, I think, actually kind of mandated that counties started looking into, or taxing entities started looking into groundwater conservation districts. And the Upper Trinity Groundwater Conservation District was created, and it was on a ballot. And of course, it's really hard to vote no. It's really hard for the taxpayer. I'm all for the taxpayer seeing really clear both sides of the story. You know, we've heard we hear one, you know, when somebody wants something, you tend to argue that side of the equation instead of looking at it objectively. But it went on a ballot, and we ended up joining the Upper Trinity creating the Upper Trinity Groundwater Conservation District, which is, the top county, where Bowie is. What county is it? Montague, and then Wise County, and then Parker County, and then we're the southernmost county in the 4 counties that are members of the Upper Trinity. And we transferred all of the groundwater management to them. And they are run by a board of 2 appointed people per county, so there's 8 members on the board, and they decide people's property owners' fate with regard to water wells. And if you go talk to water well drillers that are in the business out there in this area, you're not going to find one that says the Upper Trinity Groundwater Conservation District has been a good thing. And so there are some serious questions when you remove an elected person who's answerable to the taxpayers out of the equation and you set up a board. It could be good or it could be bad. So I use that as an example because I think that's something we need to really look at and we need to think about all of this. Both sides, the worst side scenario, the best side scenario, because you've said it yourself, it can be, with all the right circumstances, it can be a very workable deal. And I have no problem with that idea. And so the question to me comes down, is it right for this county at this time? And that was your comment. And so I think everybody we need to see both sides of the equation very clearly. And I want to make, for my seat in the bleachers, I want to make sure the taxpayers get to see both sides of the equation and not just hear, the unicorns and rainbows on the one side and not look at the downside. And so I appreciate you coming in here and giving us that. And I don't think, I'm not really sure that anybody would argue too much with your depiction of possible downsides.
Chief, you gave us, I think, a very fair assessment, really, of both sides and what we should be contemplating as the Commissioners Court for doing what the best thing for all of the citizens of Hood County. And I want to thank you very much for doing that. And please keep your door open and your telephone open because I may have some more questions of you. So thank you very, very much, Chief. You really did a good job. I really want to thank you. I think you did a great job. Okay. The next speaker that I'd like to call up is Mr. Scott Mitchell. He is going to touch on some insurance issues surrounding this concept here. So Mr. Scott Mitchell is with an insurance company here in Granbury. Is that correct?
I am, yes, sir.
Okay, please.
Thank you. My name is Scott Mitchell. I've been in the commercial property and casualty industry for going on 24 years. I started in South Texas, and specifically Cameron, Willacy, Hidalgo counties, and I worked with ESDs. I represented BFIS and a couple of other companies that insured emergency service providers. But I'm not an authority on ESDs. That's not what I'm here to discuss. Now, I guess my purpose is just to share information based on, and I think it's probably been touched on from what I can deduce, based on ISO ratings, community public protection classifications, and how an ESD would affect that. I moved my family to Hood County in 2006, specifically to start a commercial insurance agency in 2007. And one of the challenges that I faced, Hood County is unique. It is a community that is on the growth. And one of the specific challenges that I faced was finding companies willing to write property and casualty in Hood County and the surrounding areas. There were E&S, excess and surplus markets, which tend to be higher risk, insurance companies that are more comfortable taking on higher risk, that would do business in Hood County. But a lot of your household names, from a commercial insurance standpoint, your Hartford's, CNA, Travelers, some of these others, were really reluctant because Granbury, our city limits and county limits look like a jigsaw puzzle. And there's really not much rhyme or reason as to the layout. And so the companies were avoiding really coming in and writing a lot of business in this area. Now at that time, and their concern was our fire response. At that time, I believe Sheriff Deeds was the fire marshal. And I called him and I said, look, I need some help. I'm having a dickens of a time getting reputable insurance companies, admitted markets that are going to give the kind of coverage that I want to have in our county for the kind of pricing that's affordable to our business owners to even give me the time of day. And so what he did was he gave me a report. And that report contained a list of the trucks, the fire stations, how certain fires are responded to based on their geographic location and severity, the water supply, and I have that, even though it's outdated, I have that to this day. But what I did was I used that report and I flew in vice presidents of underwriting for major companies to come here and get in my truck and drive around this town and explain to them why we are a worthy risk. And I used that report as well. And as a result, I was able to get companies like American Hallmark to come in and write business with me in this county. And the irony is, American Hallmark's world headquarters at the time was on Sundance Square. Yet they wouldn't write property and casualty insurance in Hood County. So that was helpful. I would say our ISO rating is all over the board. Our PPC rating is all over the board in Hood County. We'll see anywhere from a 10, which is considered completely unprotected, 9 to 10. We'll see some of the outlying areas that will have a PC 7 or 8. And then mostly in Granbury, you're going to see Granbury, Pecan, De Cordova, the Lake Granbury area, you're going to see a PC 6, 6 to 3. So the establishment of ESDs, I'm not here to argue for or against. I guess I'm here just to share information as to how the establishment of the ESD would possibly affect insurance rates. I think the greater impact is infrastructure. Your ISO protection class rating is established certainly by your first responders, your fire stations and what kind of response times they have historically. But your water supply, how you get water to a fire is huge. And so I would actually advocate to have, based on some of our expansion of our water supply, and I would probably advocate having an ISO review, just to see if we can improve based on some of the improvements that we've already made in infrastructure. what you see as far as insurance rates are concerned is they throw around terms like protected versus unprotected. And if our PPC, public protection class rating, were to drop in Granbury from an average of 4 to a 2, I don't think it would affect insurance rates probably in the least. Specifically because the insurance companies are going to say, okay, when I go to rate a commercial building or even a residence, my partner has a personal lines agency, and the insurance companies that take public protection classifications into account on their underwriting will say, okay, anything from a 0 to 6 is considered protected, and this is what our rates for a protected class are. And then if you get into a 7 or 8, then they're going to be moderately protected or borderline or fringe or whatever terminology they use. And so they will likely still write that piece of business, but it's going to be at a higher rate. And then your 9s and 10s, we have to seek out specific companies that are comfortable writing that degree of risk. So as far as Granbury is concerned, I think that what you're going to see, the benefit of having an ISO inspection where they come out and they review our community is not necessarily are they going to give preferred rates for a piece of business. It's going to be, am I willing to write that piece of business? So Old Acton Highway, the Madison Park area where what was Rib Shack is Brock's now, and that plaza over there. I have insured that for a long time. That was one that I specifically had to bring an underwriter in and take in my truck to go and see that piece of business. Now, it's different now than it was then. We now have, I believe there's water out there, there's a fire hydrant out there, and it would be a totally different story right now. I think there are outlying areas in Granbury that would benefit from a review because there are insurance companies that are looking at old PPCs and they're saying, no, we're not going to ride out there. I mean, you're just almost assured a total loss by fire if we ever have a spark. And so that's no longer the case. We have improved our infrastructure to the degree that I think some insurance companies that would now be willing to write still aren't because on paper they have a higher PPC. So it's really not micromanaged to the point that when I pull an ISO loss cost report, that's going to tell me the public protection class, it's going to tell me the building grade of the building, it's going to tell me the construction, whether it's wind resistive, whether it's not, what kind of roof it has, all this pertinent underwriting information. The public protection class is certainly one of those items that's considered. However, there's a lot more factors that go into it. I think that infrastructure is probably more impactful as to the marketability of our community to insurance companies willing to come in and write business.
Can you touch on a little bit? I've heard, and you kind of did the same thing there, that anywhere from a 1 to a 6 is protected. What's the objective? What is the gain in going from a 3 to a 2, 2 to a 1? Why? Explain to me if that doesn't really factor into anything. What's the point? Why even aim for that goal?
Well, based on what I've seen, now in theory, it might be of benefit, but based on my experience and in practice, there's not much of a benefit at all going from a 4 to a 3, a 3 to a 2. If you're in a 6 or below, you're considered in a protected area. And so I think more important than the insurance rates is the willingness of an insurance company to come in and write in an area that is above a 6. Once you start getting 6 or below, then you're going to start being able to see companies that will now be willing to come into your community and write insurance.
That PPC that you did years ago, were we under 6?
Yes. Now, in Granbury proper, yes.
Okay.
In De Cordova, it's an average 4. In Pecan, you'll see a 4 to 3 to a 6, 4 to a 6. But yeah, yes, sir, we were below 6 in Granbury proper. I think that where an ESD might really benefit would be some of the outlying communities out towards Toller, Bluffdale, some of those areas out there. But one of Bluffdale's major issues is water supply infrastructure. I think that's a big issue out there. There are companies that absolutely, for not any price, will go and write insurance in Bluffdale. And it's not because they don't have a responding fire department, it's that they don't have the water supply.
Are you finding, because this has been a rumor that's floated around, and maybe you're the guy to answer this one. There's been some discussion that says Academy didn't come here because of insurance costs or fire protection class, or because Granbury's a volunteer fire department and those kind of things. And I've also heard, no, it had nothing to do with that. It's the demographics of the situation. They decided to build on the side of I-20. Can you speak at all to any of that?
No more than hearsay.
Okay. All right. I didn't know if you had any inside scoop on any of that, or if you've been experienced.
We are contractor heavy in my agency. And so because we're contractor heavy, we write bonds because contractors need bonds. We're one of the few real bonding agencies in this area. And so that speaks to subdivision bonds as well. So when you see new subdivisions coming in that the county or the city requires be bonded, we write most of those bonds. So a lot of the big developers in Hood County, I can just say from conversations that we've had, there is likely some validity to that, but I cannot speak authoritatively on it.
I've got a question for you. So in an outlying area, oh, yeah. So for those that don't know me, Matt Hustle, chief at a Toller Fire Department. So in the outlying areas going from a 9 to a 6 or a 5, would there be some insurance savings for those individuals on their policies?
I think the insurance savings, Matt, that they would see would be that new insurance companies you would see more increased competition. You would see companies that are not willing to write there. I mean, if XYZ company is the only game in town, they're going to charge the prices they're going to charge. And every insurance company has benchmark rates that oftentimes the state will set, and then they can deviate from those rates up or down. And so if they don't have to apply credits, well, they're not gonna. And so when you see competition come in, and the competition is willing to deviate off of benchmark, down 10%, down 20%, then all of a sudden the companies that were unwilling to previously, it's going to be more of a competition issue than a rating issue.
So in a roundabout way.
In a roundabout way, you're going to see, and that's why I said some of those outlying areas back to where you are would see some benefit. If you get, from an unprotected PPC down to what's considered protected. And there are some companies that, I have a company that writes builder's risks, and they consider protected anything 8 or below. Now they're unique because most companies want to see a 6 or below.
So does an insurance company worry about if they have the infrastructure and the water supply, not having the people to man those trucks and get there? Is that an impact on them? Because that's kind of the current situation we have.
Yes, that's, I believe, and I don't know the exact formula, but I believe when you look at how a public protection class is developed, 50% of it is your fire services, your response. Then I think 40% of it is water supply, and then 10% of it would be distance to fire hydrants within 1,000 feet, distance to a responding fire station within 5 miles or within 7 miles in some cases.
So,
But yes, 50% of that is your fire response.
sure. So if you can reduce response times by, from 14 minutes down to 60 seconds, that is a benefit of an insurance rating?
It is. It is if you have the infrastructure in place. But if you're running out there with a bunch of tank trucks, it's not going to help you much.
What do you mean tank truck?
Well, they want to see fire hydrants. They want to see, they want to see water lines and fire hydrants.
We have another question? Can you step up to the mic, please?
Let me address a couple of things. First of all, ISO ratings are, like you said, is a formula, and it's not just the fire service. It's dispatch, how many lines do you have coming in, how many call takers you have. It gets down to the equipment, even some of it's antiquated, what they request that you have on your fire truck.
A play pipe.
A hose jacket, which is to repair 2.5-inch hose. And when we had our ISO, I'm a former fire chief. I was a fire chief in Hurst, Texas. I've got 41 years of fire service. So I've been through it. I prepared for it. I had 2 people on it. It took us 9 months to prepare for an insurance ISO rating to come in and audit. So it's not a simple thing to do. I mean, it's very, there's a lot of things to do. To address your question a while ago about commercial property, there's 4 types of construction. One being protected. If the academy, if it's going to be a sprinkler building, they're going to be concerned about the water supply available to that building. The design and engineering, your fire code, that's going to affect their insurance. Commercial rates are much more affected by ISO ratings than are residential. But the underwriters, when they go to a big box store like your Lowe's or Home Depot, they're going to look at their history, and they're going to look at what kind of water supply they have to that building. Your sprinkler system is your first line of defense, and they're counting on it to take what potentially could be a large loss into a minor loss. And so that's how they as an underwriter, that's what they're going to look at. So the argument that, well, they don't come to Granbury because they don't have a paid fire department, it's not true, okay? You have a huge HEB, and I promise you, the Butcher Brothers they know what they're doing. And so, to answer that question, they may raise an eyebrow like, to make them to do more investigation about what their underwriter's going to do, their personal underwriter's going to do as far as that property at that location, and that's going to be in their business plan. Is there enough business here to warrant an increase of $10,000 a year in insurance rates? So they're going to do that. The ISO, like Ron pointed out, don't base it on just that, because residentially, if it's under a 6, your rate's going to be relatively the same. They're going to be more concerned, is it a brick veneer building or is it a frame construction with a combustible siding? Because if you have combustible siding and you have a wildland fire in an unprotected area, then you have the potential of the spread to the structure, and that's going to affect whether I want to ride it or not. So that's the kind of thing that you get into with insurance. So the insurance question, like you said, there are people that won't ride in Hood County because, there's better business somewhere else that we feel like there's better money. But we can't base everything we do on that. The water shuttle issue has been 2003, I think we got all the tankers. Was that 2001? They demonstrated a shuttle, it was actually written in Firehouse Magazine. about, we did a water shuttle. When they did, they demonstrated that, and it dropped the ISO rating because they could demonstrate that they could deliver a 1,500-gallon water supply over an extended period of time. So equipment and your demonstration and your ability to deliver water over a longer period sometimes can be a substitute for fire hydrants. You're not going to get fire hydrants in 80% of the county. It's just not going to happen. AMUD, because it's a municipal utility district, they're putting hydrants in, and it's helped in some areas, but they're not countywide. Nor will they be countywide, and it's not going to be the Commissioner's Court that ever does that. So there's some things that are out of our hand. We have to concentrate on the things that we can do that we know that will have a positive effect that makes money sense, because we all know, Commissioner, you were talking about, you know, what does the dollar and cents make? So that's what we have to look at. So don't hang your hat on insurance. It's the big picture kind of thing. I hesitate to say this, but I'm very pro firefighter, and I'm very pro firefighter safety. You know, when you sit in the chief's position, every time they make a call, you feel responsible for them getting back safely and return their family the way they left. And so, in that respect, I think equipment, safety equipment, procedures, all those things are very, very important to keep us safe. One of the things about an ESD, it's attractive because we get funding that we might not have. I'm for a countywide ESD. I think a countywide ESD would be a wonderful thing, because those would be dedicated funds that would take care of it. When you piecemeal it, as Ron pointed out, you create some area jealousy. It's unfortunate that it happens. I have been a volunteer in Granbury. I've been a volunteer when I lived in Toller. I've been a volunteer at DCBE. So I've got some experience in the volunteer field besides my professional experience. And those kind of things are going to come into play. I think countywide ESD would be wonderful. But if you have 2 out of 9, you're still going to have 75% of your commitment for fire protection in this county. You're still going to have to pay dispatchers. You're still going to have to fund the other departments. And if I'm a taxpayer in Precinct 3, and Precinct 3 is an ESD, then on top of that, I'm going to pay, if they went 10 cents, it would be over 23% more in taxes, plus paying for the rest of the county. And that's my big concern. Countywide, I think it's a wonderful, because that burden comes off of the general fund and goes to a dedicated fund. And in that, when you move out that pool of money that you're putting out, then you're going to have more flexibility. Either you're going to have more money to stop future increase in taxes because you're already collecting taxes, or you may even have a decrease. But if you're still funding 75% of the fire protection for the county and only 2 departments, then those areas are going to be burdened with paying. And when you look at your taxes, it's always interesting. Somebody said, the city taxes are this, or the county taxes this, and they're looking at the bottom line. And if you look at the school district, they're the highest of them all.
Right.
So it's not, it's the big number that you always look at. It's not like, well, I'm paying, you know, $384 a year in county taxes. They didn't say that, oh, I'm paying $1,290 in school taxes. It's, my tax bill is $3,600 a year. And you add $3,600 and 23%, if it's a 10% rate, then your tax bill is going to be bigger. And so that's my concern, is that collectively, if we, in one of the points that he made, if you set it up right from the beginning, you're going to stop a lot of problems down the road. Imagine if you had 9 ESDs in Hood County, which is a potential. You have 45 people on boards that were taking care of fire protection. Do you think they'd all be on the same page? Do you think that they're going to be really accountable countywide? If you have 5 people then you're gonna have a lot of consistency, because there's 5 people, and you can address 5 people pretty easily. And as commissioners, even though you don't have a direct responsibility, your phone's still gonna ring. They're gonna look at you and say, why aren't you, well, I appoint the board. So it becomes kind of a hot potato. Imagine if another thing is brought up, say they decide they're going to adopt fire codes. Some do, some don't. Some say they're going to use this code with these exceptions, and this one says I'm going to use this with no exceptions. Then you're going to have a great disparity in where people locate, businesses locate, because of the cost of doing business. Because if I have to construct my business to this level because their fire code is here, or I can go across the street and it's here, where am I going? So there's a big danger that it's the administration more than the response that's the problem. You know, volunteers are dedicated, paid firefighters are dedicated. They're going to do the job, they're going to do the very best job they can, and we owe it as taxpayers and as commissioners that we need to make that job as safe as we possibly can. We need to do everything within reason that we can to fund them at a level that they can do the job that we expect them to do. And that's the goal of administration. But when you fragment it, that's where the problems begin. And that's what bothers me. Thank you.
Would you, I might have missed your name just for the record.
Rick Fry.
Thank you. Did you have did you have a follow-up question?
Yeah.
Could you step to the mic, please?
Sure. Chief Fry talks about the 45 people and not having the best benefit for the county. Nobody has said that we're not excluding the rest of the county in doing this. An ESD can be created, and just like Parker County ESD 1, it can be annexed the entire county. So nobody, is that how it worked in Parker County? Am I correct?
That's correct.
So, you know, having just a single wide ESD doesn't mean it has to stay a single wide ESD. And the 23% tax increase in the proposed district, for me, that's $1.06 a day is what my taxes would be going up, because I'm a taxpayer in that district. So if my taxes went up, it would be $1.06 a day. So I understand it is a tax increase, but it's something that me, as a paying citizen in that district, I can pay $1.06 a day for better fire protection.
You pay more than that for your cell phone, right?
I do pay more than that for my cell phone.
I did want to add, Chief Fry touched on a couple of things, and he's absolutely right. I agree with him. I guess the point of me being here is to say, if you're looking to insurance rates going up or down to affect your decision, I really think it's probably going to be a non-factor. I can't speak to the governance and the money and the taxation and the everything else that everybody here is way more qualified to address than I. But I will tell you that most of Granbury is a 6 or below, and you're not going to see a significant savings from an insurance. So I would not let that be your deciding factor.
Hey. Anybody else?
Thank you for having us today. Some of you don't know, but I'm Brian Wooten, Fire Chief for Decker-Dove-Acton. I've met with all of you except for Commissioner Cotton. I started my career at Decker-Dove in April of 2005 as a volunteer. I'm now a professional firefighter paramedic, and I still volunteer to this day. So I started, it's what I was doing. To talk about an ESD, Crescent was run as a great example. I believe he generates just under $250,000 plus apparatus, so that's great. I've worked for ESD1, where Mark Jack, you still work there? I've seen the success, I've seen the growing, the positivity from it. It's a great place to work. Fortunately, my time there came short. So, ESD1 is something that we should mirror and could, provided that we let the voters of our proposed area vote for it. Which is all we're asking for. Today is about the petition that's been presented to the court from Decker-Dove. And we have some very knowledgeable speakers here from our Jack and our attorney. We just like to talk about us and that and how we can go forward from today.
Okay, thank you very much. Jeff, you got anything you want to add or say?
So there has been some comments made that I'm anti-ESD. I won't even say that I'm anti-ESD. I'm more pro-fire service improvement. I think we can reach a lot of the same goals. Brent and I had a discussion the other day. We have the same goals in mind. We just have different off-ramps that we're looking at. I think in a roundabout way, this is kind of a discussion on, do we want to stay in the fire business as a county, or do we want to get out of the way? I think if we were able to increase our annual fire budget by about $5.2 million a year, we can meet a lot of the goals that they're looking for without forming another level of government. I know I've talked to some of you individually about kind of what my proposal was at a $5.2 million increase, and whether that means a tax increase or if we look at other ways to fund it, that's someone else's bailiwick, because I can tell you what we need. I can't necessarily tell you the best ways to get there, but I think overall what we're looking at is just a way to improve the fire service. So it's really kind of up to us to decide which avenue we're going to take to get there.
Well, it's no secret that I'm here because of that very issue. I was sitting in the chief's meeting and the ESD topic came up when I decided to run for commissioner. That this is something that's very important to me, and it's something that I felt like I could get in here and make a difference. This is, and I honestly believe to a man that everybody sitting up here is very pro-supportive of our fire departments and getting these needs met. Does that mean, you know, 1.2 million for De Cordova out of next year's budget? I don't know. I don't know where, you know, I can speak for me. You know, nobody else. I don't know what that answer is. Is an ESD the only way to get there? You know, I don't think that is the only way to get there. I think that there are other ways to get there, and it does eliminate some of these other concerns. I have big concerns about hybrid departments. I think that I've made that, you know, and this is, it's okay for us to have a difference of opinion on that. I mean, it's, you know, it's.
Yeah.
I'm not going to. Jeff and I, obviously, we have some disagreements on how we get there. The frustrating part is that there never has been, this is not a knock at anybody, but there's never been a long-term comprehensive plan for fire protection in Hood County. You guys give us what we ask for when we ask for it, and we're appreciative of it. But we also understand that the fire service is growing and it's expensive. It doesn't get cheaper.
Yep.
It's not going to get cheaper. The cost of building a new truck goes up 4% annually. So while it may not be the best solution in your eyes, Commissioner Andrews, that's a solution that has been presented.
Right.
And it's a solution that a petition has been turned in and should be heard. I would love to hear any other solutions that anybody has to adequately fund the fire service in Hood County. We have a $517,000 budget split 9 ways. So what that means is our fire departments, Toller, Crescent, De Cordova, all the fire departments are allotted $30,000 a year as a stipend. That's it.
Well, that's not it. That's
not-
just as a
it's
stipend.
As a
Yes.
stipend.
Yeah.
We also get fuel, we also get insurance. Subsidy. I mean different things. Correct, a subsidy.
Subsidy.
My apologies.
Okay.
You guys do provide other things for us. The reality is the cost to operate is getting more expensive. It's getting more expensive because our call volume is going up significantly because our population is going up. And we recognized this issue 4 years ago when you were talking about, and we tried to come up with a countywide ESD plan then, and nobody was willing to step forward and say, hey, it's a good thing to do, let's do it. There were 2 people that were willing to step forward and say, hey, we'll take this and see how it pans out. So, yes, there has been discussion for a long time on how to get better, and we're still discussing it. And my fear, as a citizen and as a first responder, is that we're going to continue to fall behind without having a real plan. We've implemented a new radio system, is that correct? 700 series?
That we've been working on for 20 years.
Yeah, 20 years to get there, and we still haven't figured out how we're going to use it as a county yet on the fire side of things. So the other level of government that you guys speak of, I understand nobody has stood behind the fact that it's not a tax increase. It is another level of government, but those are issues that can be worked through and issues that should be worked through, but we're having a hard time working through some of the issues now without another level of government, such as our radio system. So I do think and I do believe that we all want the same goal. We just may differ on how to get there, and that's okay, like you said. So I'm going to introduce Mark Jack. He's a commissioner of ESD1 in Parker County, and let him explain to you how successful and beneficial these things can be.
One comment before we go there. You made the statement that you only got 30,000.
I said as a stipend, Jeff said as a subsidy, and I
Okay.
corrected myself.
On top of that, sir, documentation right here. Lake Cordova, from April of 2019 to December of 2020, on just SCBA mask and equipment and tanks, $34,043.50. That's to Lake Cordova. The total to the 9 departments in the county, $323,163 for that same time frame, just on SCBA masks, tanks, and the social related.
I understand that,
Okay,
Commissioner,
but you know.
and we do get fuel, we do get maintenance, we do.
Okay, but you know, don't make the statement that that's all you get, because that's not a true statement.
That's a once every 20-year expense.
Yeah.
Well,
That's not accurate.
I'm not arguing that point. I'm just saying, from the time frame of April of 19,
You're correct, Commissioner, that is right.
because it's right
You're
here.
also correct, Matt, that's a once every 20-year expense.
This is a huge problem. Nobody up here is saying that we don't have a problem funding our fire service. That is
Do have a
not,
problem.
that is not at all what we're saying, yeah. The answer is what avenue do we go to or take? Like I said, which exit ramp do we get off on? Is it an ESD? And frankly, there are concerns there. That's not a perfect, nothing is. That's not a perfect answer. Boy, to give you a lot of money right off the bat. There's no doubt to that. That is some extreme funding.
It'd be continuous extreme funding.
Do it.
Continuous extreme funding.
Yeah, no, it is a steady stream of a whole lot of money. There's no doubt. If it's put into place by the citizens.
Let me ask that one question. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, we're pretty much got every 9 departments on a level playing field as far as finance. And is that true?
No, sir, that's not correct.
Okay, so, but I understand from what I got from you guys that the amount of calls in your district, or Lake Cordova, is what, double, 3 times more than maybe what Lipan does?
From 2009 to 2020.
So would Lipan have any problem if we increased your subsidy and decreased their subsidy? Would the other fire departments be okay with that if we picked and choose the ones that we think have got more business?
Well, so when you say that we're all a playing field, I think we should take the city of Granbury out of that, because while they are in the county,
Well, we just brought them up on their subsidy the same as yours.
well, they don't get the same subsidy as we do, Commissioner.
Is that right, Jeff?
From the county, they do, yes.
Yeah, from the county
they do.
perspective, all 9 are exactly
All 9
the
are
same.
exactly the same.
That's fair.
Well, maybe
Okay.
a little bit of variation with who
But
pays
not
what
all
insurance.
fire departments do the same thing, is that correct? So I'm just asking, should we split it up and pay, take Cordova more money than we do Lipan
Well, I think that's
or
where-
Station 70
I
or?
think that's where a comprehensive plan that's never been put into
Okay.
place would be
I
beneficial.
was just asking the question.
Sure, no, I
Okay.
understand.
I'd like to throw in something. And come on up, Mr. Fry.
Well, yeah, Matt?
Yeah, go ahead. You're up there.
Matt Hutzel, Fire Chief Toller. So to speak to your budgeting end, I don't remember what made the thought come into my head. So whatever plan we put into place, just like you said a minute ago, it's at the whim of the Commissioner's Court. So we could do $5 million right now. We could do $100 million right now. 2 years later, it could be gone. So ESDs are the only consistent way, in my opinion, that's just my opinion, to guarantee that those monies go to fire protection. So, because no matter the Commissioner's Court, we get a good board, a bad board, whatever, the money still has to be spent on fire protection. So, that's all I have to say.
We're talking about equity. Equity is really hard to achieve because some departments run a few calls, some run a whole bunch of calls. What I'd like to see, it's budget time, you know, it's up front, here we go. I'd like to see the commissioners take the fire departments in their precincts and have their budget submitted to you, and you review it. The budget should be comprehensive, O&M, capital, everything. You review it. They prioritize what their needs are in that budget, and in the discussion, you can draw them out. And then you have a workshop, you get together, and you can sit down and say, well, Rockland needs this. Indian Harbor needs this. Oak Trail Shore needs this. And then collectively, as commissioners, you come up with a funding plan for this budget year. Now, in that, you know, capital is always one of those things, it's like it's the elephant in the room. And like they said, air packs are not you know, we don't do this every year. We do it periodically.
I understand.
Then we decide, well, if we look at the capital and everybody's asking for specific things that are actually capital expenditures, then we look and we look at bonding money right now is as cheap as it's ever going to be. And so we look at this year's budget and we say, okay, we have a request and it seems like this is a need that needs to be funded. It's a capital item. It has a life of over 5, 10, 15, 20 years, whatever the item is. And then as commissioners, you prioritize it. And then you decide, do we want to go out with a bond package to fund that need? Can we do it internally? One of the big errors in budgeting, and I'm picking y'all, all y'all are new, one of the deals is our forecasts are way low. A couple of meetings ago, we had $1 million more in sales tax than projected. Our projections ought to be better than that, guys. I'm just going to tell you. And if they're not, you need to change it. So if you have $1 million sitting out there that's not committed, then you need to look at that. How do we put that money to work for the citizens? When I vote on a bond, I know it's going to be 20 years, whatever the life of that bond is. And I expect that my tax dollars are going to go in that over incremental. In 20 years, that debt's going to go away. When you use that money just to pay off debt, you're not really helping what we need to do today. We're doing something, does it help your bondability maybe at the end of the day? It possibly can, but I'm not worried about my bond rating. I'm worried about the services that we're going to deliver. And so I would suggest that y'all look at that maybe if you put the burden on the fire marshal's office, which has been in the past, it's not really fair to him. It's really not. You're more in touch with your constituents and the needs in your area. I guarantee you, Dave is in his area, Jack's going to be in his area, Ron's going to be in his area. You hear those budgets first. You talk to the chiefs, you get the priorities, then you all get together collectively and you decide how you're going to do it. And I think we do that we can at least move forward incrementally. And it may not be the long-term fix, And until we try it, we're not going to know if it's even what we're going to do, but it's different. So just my suggestion.
Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Fry. Hey, Rick.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
You know, I want to thank you for coming up, and, you know, you've mentioned a very hot topic for me, and that's the underestimation of our sales tax. We've historically, for the last several years, that's been under budgeted, or been a lowballed, for lack of a better term. I agree with you 100%. And the issues, when we have $1.4 million more collected than we budgeted, then we've got to do something with that overage that's only within certain parameters. And so I agree, I am going to be personally looking into that issue this next budget go-around, because there's over $1 million a year that we've had overage for the last several years consistently that we could look at for more funds for the fire departments, because I'm behind the fire departments, believe me. We may differ on how we get to where we need to get to, but believe me, you know, I'm serious about that. And for instance, I've got a wish list. I'm going to call this a Christmas list, or, you know, these are things that I asked for from Mr. Wooten and Mr. Wilson. Give me something about what you need. Give me a list with what you need itemized and how much it is. And from them, I got about a $550,000 list. And I appreciate that. I'm sorry I didn't acknowledge there's nothing I can do with it till we get to budget time. But I should have said, hey, thanks for sending it. Thank you for sending that. I got a wish list from Crescent, $250,000. I got a wish list from Toller, over $1 million. So you can see there's quite a discrepancy on what people think, each BFD thinks they need, and what I would like to see from all the other fire departments, so that we can put them all on the table, like you said. And I really like the idea. I think that is a great idea for each of us commissioners to get with the BFDs within our, focus on the ones in our individual precincts and go through, even though we're having to look at this as a commissioner's court with their petition that's been filed on De Cordova. I really like the idea of getting everybody, try to get them on the same page. So I appreciate your input on that. It's very, very well taken.
Thank you, sir. I do have another budget comment. The budget should be your plan. The budget should reflect, this is the services and how we're going to go about doing it for this year. One of my pet peeves, Barrett, is that routinely, about at least once every month, we have a tremendous amount of budget amendments. And we'll transfer funds from here, from there, from there. Is that staying with the plan? If you have a household budget, and your wife says, you know, our food budget is $300, and then this month she's going to say, well, I need $400, and I'm going to take out of this fund. I'm going to do without this so I can do that. Is that really staying with the plan, or have we just erased what we need to function in the budget? If we're transferring money routinely out of funds, are those funds inflated so you can't transfer money? Or what's going on?
This would take a totally different workshop to get through that. I come from the corporate world. This would never fly, folks. But it's government. Sorry, and my auditor's not here. Could give me a better explanation of why we go through that, but we do, and it's a terrible excuse. Says that's the way they've always done it, but that's the way government works. In the corporate world, would never fly. You make a budget, and you're either under or over your budget, but that's a terrible answer to give you, but that is just take a whole different workshop that we can talk about budgets.
I'm going to quote you again, Commissioner, on that one. I appreciate that. You will be quoted again on that.
Good.
I promise you.
Good. Yeah, tell us who you are, please.
Oh, sorry, Julie Bell. And I just had something to say about the operating funds of Cal, Toller, Becker, and Crescent. They're used to a large budget. But if you take Lipan, Station 70, and North County, we're used to a small budget. And we all operate different. We want just what we need, you know,
Yeah, step up a little bit closer there and make sure
Who
you're,
are you with?
we need Northern County.
I'm sorry?
Northern
Okay, thank you.
2005. You know, we just want what we need, not to overdo it, you know, just to get by and do our job. You know, and I'm not 100% for an ESD, but that's not up to me, that's up to y'all. But I do want to say, however, look at everything with open eyes. You know, look at both of them, 100% before a decision. So, that's all I have.
Okay. You want to hear first, and you be next. You were up. You got something?
Okay.
Sure.
Well, good morning. I'm Mark Jack. I'm Commissioner of Parker County ESD 1. You've heard our name come up several times in this, so I was asked to come over and present a little information. I'm here to give you information about our ESD and not to tell you one way or another what you need to do. That's your decision. But we started Parker County ESD 1 actually in 1998. It became Parker County Rural Fire Protection District. We didn't have a lot of funding at the time, and we needed a new fire station. And the only way that we come up with the funding was to become an ESD. The county was not going to give us any more money. And so that's how Parker County ESD 1 started in 1998. The first year, our budget, our revenue that we took in for the Rural Fire Protection District was $70,000. We thought we had hit the jackpot. We had $70,000. We had asked several other different departments to join us, and none of the volunteer departments wanted to join us, so we did it on our own. The county commissioner court allowed us to follow through with our petition, and we let the citizens decide, and the citizens unanimously voted it in. And so we started then, and through the years, several other departments came to us and asked us to annex them. So we annexed them. There again, that becomes a citizen's vote. We have to allow the citizens to vote, and it's 2 votes. The current citizens in your fire district, ESD, have to decide to allow that to happen, and the citizens of that area that you're trying to annex have to vote that in also. So it's all in one day, but it's 2 elections. It's 1 election, but it's 2 different groups voting it in. So successfully, we passed all those, and our district grew. And now we cover 300 square miles. We operate with 7 different departments, and we also operate as our own service provider. We have full-timers, part-timers, and volunteers. We have had an ISO rating. We've lowered our ISO in many areas. Some areas we went from a 6 to a 2. Some areas we went from an 8 to a 3. But we substantially lowered our ISO rating. And that's been something that we were pretty passionate about doing. Again, like everyone else said, I wouldn't base this on just strictly your ISO. That's not the basis for forming an ESD. Your ISO rating is formed off your fire department, your communications, and your water supply. Those are the 3 criteria, big ticket or large items, and it funnels down from that. Right now, our ESD, Parker County ESD 1, we staff 6 of our stations full-time. We staff them full-time with full-timers, part-timers, and volunteers. But we run a 3-person engine out of 6 stations, and we staff a 7th station with 2 personnel, typically Monday through Saturday, Monday through Friday. It just depends. So sometimes we pay our guys overtime, sometimes we pay our part-timers to be there. It just depends on our staffing level that we have. We run 1 fire chief, 1 assistant chief, we have 4 battalion chiefs. 3 of those battalion chiefs are operational, One battalion chief is a brand-new training chief. That we're having to expand a little bit. So, as you can see, this thing has really escalated and we've grown. We started at 96 square miles, and now we're 310 square miles of Parker County. And we have a substantial budget, but it takes a substantial budget to run that big of an operation. And we work with the city of Springtown and the city of Aledo and all the unincorporated areas that are in our ESD. So we have a very good working relationship with those cities. We work with the city managers and the mayors and the city councils. We work with the county commissioners. If any of you know George Conley, Parker County Commissioner, he was on the founding board with me. He would be a very good person to contact. I would highly recommend, if you have questions, contact George Conley, Commissioner Conley at Parker County also. That way you get a commissioner, the commissioner perspective of it. So, but I'm here to answer your questions. I'm here to hopefully help you guys out. And if you have anything that you need to know about Parker County ESD 1, I'm also president of the Board of Safety, State Association of Fire and Emergency Service Districts, which there are 335 ESDs in the state of Texas right now. And that's across the whole state. There's only a few areas of the state that they're elected. The rest of the state, they're appointed by the Commissioner's Court. Harris County is one of those, and Smith County is and so there.
And in certain ESDs along the intercoastal.
Right, the intercoastal. You have Texas and then Harris County.
Harris County, then Texas.
Or multi-county districts are elected.
So, but I'm welcome to answer any questions you have.
How many full-time, 24 hours a day paid firemen do you have in your ESD?
Right now, we have 28 full-time firefighters.
Okay.
Okay. We supplement our staffing with
And
part-timers.
volunteers, how many? It's hard to keep track of, probably.
I don't know
Okay.
offhand because we're running.
But you do have both?
Yes.
Okay.
We require volunteers to pull a 12-hour shift 2 times a month. That's part of the requirement. So they can pull that shift from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. or they can do it from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. And they get to pick when they want to do it.
So they're on call?
No, they're just.
They're there. So you.
Otherwise, they are on call, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So we still have volunteers that show up.
On call.
But the thing about the staffing that we have, and this is the criteria that we base it on, our volunteer rate was going down. We were losing volunteers. When we formed the ESD, right after we formed the Rural Fire Protection District, we had 35 volunteers and we had a waiting list to get on. Okay? And through the years, the volunteers have just decidedly gone down, and it's hard to find volunteers. People work out of town. They work in Fort Worth, they work wherever. But we have a hard time keeping volunteers, and they just don't have the time for it. They can't respond to a call at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We get a school on fire, we get a church on fire, or a commercial building on fire, they can't go. They're not there. Sometimes they can go at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, but a lot of times they have to get up at 6 and drive into work. So, and it's not just a Parker County thing or a Hood County thing, it's a nationwide problem that we're having with volunteers across the nation. Volunteer ranks are declining, and people just don't have the time for that.
I got a couple of questions. So what is your annual tax income for your number one?
Our tax rate is 10 cents per 100.
But what is that? Parker County is about 3 times the size of Hood County. So what does that figure up to be as far as your annual?
Property tax, ad valorem tax, we bring in about 5.8 million.
And then do you get sales tax a component as well?
0.5 cent sales tax that we just passed in 2017.
And I appreciate the referral to Commissioner Conley. He's a friend of mine, actually, and I think he's in his 4th term now, right? And he's a water, because he and I got to be friends regarding the Upper Trinity Groundwater Conservation District. He's also a water well man, and very good guy. So I would recommend anybody up here, I think that's a very good recommendation to call Commissioner Connolly and ask him about this, because I will be, and I appreciate that referral. But yeah, I just, appreciate your input for sure, and it sounds to me like at least over the last 21 years, or 23 years actually, that you guys have been operating, you've kind of ironed things out to where it seems to be working for you. What is your background, by the way?
My background is I worked for American Airlines for 28 years. I became a volunteer firefighter in 1996 and started down that path. I went through Fire Academy and all, and I started as a full-time firefighter and volunteer firefighter. I was one of the founding members of the Rural Fire Protection District and ESD in '98. I'm still a commissioner to this day. We've grown that district considerably, and the district kind of runs itself now. I don't have to do near the work that I had to do at the beginning. In the beginning, it took 2 ESD commissioners to sign checks. There still does, and there was only 2 of us that could sign, and the other one was in the hospital, and I had to go take our checkbook and our bills to the hospital, and we sat by his hospital bed going through that. So there is some work. I'm not going to lie to you. There is work putting this together and forming it. But they do work, and we are a very large, successful ESD, but we put the work in ahead of time.
What'd you say your sales tax component was? I'm sorry, I was trying to.
Our sales tax, we get a half cent.
No, what's the annual revenue? Ballpark.
Last year, we took in right at $1 million
Okay.
on it.
Okay.
But that's hard to project because we don't get any sales tax in the incorporated areas of Alito or Springtown. All of our sales tax is in the unincorporated area. So it's basically whatever the homeowners spend at Amazon or whatever the few Dollar General stores we have out in the county. And so that's kind of hard to project for us.
Okay, I think you had a question, didn't you?
Thank you. And I'm available. If you guys need anything, just feel free to call me.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Appreciate it.
If you had a question, come up to the mic, please. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I thought you had your hand up. Maybe you were just stretching.
He has a statement, I think.
Oh.
My name is John McCullough. I volunteer with the fire department, not as a firefighter, but anyway, I live in Becker, and I come up here as a citizen. I've sat here and listened to all this. And, you know, the county gives the fire department, I mean, I'm not familiar with all the finances. Commissioner Wilson has the money there. But, you know, I've been with volunteering with them for 7 years. And, you know, they appreciate the money the county gives. City of Becker gives a certain amount of money each year. But the money that they're receiving, there's no way the fire department can operate with that money. We have the Dayford Open lets us have a golf tournament every year. And somebody has to get out and beg people to put whole sponsors and so forth. And we have been fortunate to have a couple that has worked that for as long as I've been there. And but they're in their 80s now, and somebody's going to pick up the deal on that. And around 9/11, we all get together at the fire department and lick envelopes begging people in our area to donate to the fire department. And we normally make maybe $20,000 off the tournament and $20,000 off the, but I have seen these guys that's leading this fire department struggle to keep everything going. And, if there's 330 ESDs in Texas, there must be something good going on with ESD. So anyway, I'm recommending that, y'all seriously look at letting Becker open. I can't speak to the other 8 fire departments, but we need, we're not asking, something that we're not willing to pay for ourselves. I mean, it's gonna cost us just like it is anybody else in our area. And, right now, Becker Open gives, money, but I'm sure y'all have seen the map of our area. And there's people that's, getting the same services Becker Dover are, and it's not costing them anything. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Okay, thank you very much. Ken, you got?
Jeff, go ahead. Well, why don't you go ahead, because I'm just going to make sure there's no legal questions or anything else and kind of touch on some of the issues. They're all correct. I just wanted to amplify maybe or explain.
Okay,
some of
sure.
those.
One of the last things I wanted to point out, I just got appointed a year ago, February. Yes, I have been a member of or an employee of the Cook County Fire Marshal's Office for almost 12 years now, but until last February, I wasn't the guy making decisions or asking for stuff. One thing that I would like to point out is there has been nothing yet that I have brought to court and asked for that anyone has told me no. So all I've seen from this court and the judge is a willingness to participate and help how it's needed. The thing is, apparently, me and some of the fire departments have to work on our communication because some of them see it as I should be going to ask, and I see it as if you need something, let me know. But as of right now, I don't think there's been anything that's been asked for that has not been provided. Yes, we could all benefit from better operating budgets and newer equipment and all of that, and it's just what it is. I didn't know that, is it Mark?
Yes, sir.
He and I had something in common. I've worked for American Airlines since 1989 and still do today. On weekends, I do 32 hours. So I've been there for a little over 32 years, and I started with Indian Harbor in 2002. And then last year when I got appointed fire marshal, I retired from Indian Harbor so that I could focus on this and with some of the stuff. But again, I want to point out, it wasn't my place to come and ask for stuff until February of last year. And of course, we get with the COVID thing, and a lot of our response and attention and all that has been focused towards the response to COVID, unfortunate as that is, and I'm ready for the day that goes away. But it is what it is right now. So I just wanted to be on the record as saying, no one yet has told me no to any request. Now, this request of $5.5 million is a pretty big pill to swallow.
We're going to have to say maybe at best on that, I guess.
It's a shell moving around, I get it, to get to that point.
Right.
But I just wanted to make sure that that's known. I've received nothing but support for the fire service since I've been here, and anything that I've asked for, any discussions I've had with any of you. So I just want to make sure that that was out there.
Hey, and I think to Jeff's point, last year was the first time that that we had, as a concerted effort, got the chiefs together, brought our budgets, came to the commissioners. I'm sorry, I was fire chief at this time last year, and this is what I did participate in as a fire chief, was we got these budgets together and we came to the commissioners court, and it was, I understand we're not talking about the dollar figures that were needed here, but just from that discussion last year, our subsidy budgets went up 66%. The commissioners court at the time did step up and provide a little extra, plus the stuff that we're going through with the engine refurbs and the masks and the SCBAs and these other things. And I guess my question comes down, long and short, is this the only way that we can address with this? Are we willing to look at other options? Is there, Chief Wooten, Chief Hutzel, this is, I hate to put you on the spot, but I mean, this is kind of the place for it. And Jeff, you too, yeah.
To that point, what I was telling you, one of the first things I asked for when I got into office was a $10,000 increase on the subsidy. Well, the judge saw that it was $29,600 and something dollars. Let's just round it up to $30,000 in subsidy. So, I mean, that's kind of my point. No one has said no. No one has thought that that's a bad idea. And just for the fire departments that are out there, whether they're watching online or whatever, a lot of it comes with education, because I know there's commissioners that don't know the fire service in general. So, we were talking about air packs not too long ago, and yes, we did buy brand new air packs for all the county vehicles. Well, back when those air packs were purchased and presented, it was the purchasing agent at the time, it was their policy or the guidance that we were given was we're only going to purchase the air packs to replace the ones on the county provided equipment. Well, we annually flow test around 130, we bought 50. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there that still needs to be updated, but most of the commissioners weren't even aware that that was an issue. They see that we have bought a bunch of air packs and they're expensive, and we bought a bunch of masks and those are expensive, and we bought a bunch of bottles, and, a set of bunker gear head to toe is $5,000. But there's a lot of you that just didn't know that that was even an issue. So I just.
And as a chief, I would say that I was guilty of asking too small. To be honest with you, that was, we're coming going.
The culture at the time.
Yes, absolutely.
That's not a county thing. So to that end, I guess you ask, can it be done? So, yeah, I'd be willing to sit down, but.
I think at the end of the day, the ESD is going to be one of the only avenues of funding that's guaranteed for our blind
Sure.
service.
No, I see that. And I guess my view on this is there,
I think if there was another avenue, we'd have already explored it.
well, and I think that as fire chiefs, we do have to share some blame in that, we didn't come together as a cohesive group and look for that comprehensive plan, like, Brent, like you had talked about, a comprehensive plan for the entire county. Frankly, LIPAN doesn't need $800,000 a year that De Cordova's looking for. It's not even the same. You're looking at 180 calls out here versus 1,100 calls.
Maybe that's where that's ESD, it grows as the community grows. Like for Toller, we're going to bring in a little over $300,000 a year if we get our ESD. So the money that comes in, it grows as your community grows.
Sure.
When
sure.
we're as big as De Cordova, we're probably going to need $1 million.
Well, and what I'm seeing right now is I don't know, even at De Cordova, is it enough? Is that ESD money enough to actually meet where you need to be?
I think projected wise, it would grow into it.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I think that projection, yes. My question is, and God, I hate to say this out loud. I think that down the road, I think that an ESD is eventually going to come in. But right now, is there something, my fear with this is we're going back to the on-ramps. Once you get to an ESD, you don't come back. Is there a way now? No, go ahead.
With that statement, there's 330 ESDs.
Hey, there's some varying level of success there. I mean, that's,
They can't, abolishing an ESDs, please, that's not. It's such a high threshold, that ain't gonna happen. It ain't gonna happen.
No, I was just asking you, if an ESD is too dangerous road to go down with an exit ramp, how many have been abolished?
None.
Well, they attempted on one.
They attempted on one, none of them been abolished because you can't get rid of them. So, let's call a spade here.
Spade is we're just asking for, the ESD is not about today, tomorrow, or next year. The ESD is having the foresight to look 10, 20 years down the road to provide adequate funding for the citizens that we serve. And right now, it can't happen. All we're asking for is money for better equipment to serve people.
And Jeff just brought up $5.5 million. And I wanted to ask you,
So how can that be guaranteed just for fire?
there's no guarantees.
Exactly.
So
We're trying to guarantee.
But out of it, I understand your position. Listen, I understand that you're pro, you guys absolutely want an ESD. I got you. I get it. And but the question, but it's still about money. Your concern is, are we going to have money from now on?
My concern is not having people to respond to emergencies, to citizens. The issue isn't the citizen needing help. The issue is not having money to serve the citizen their time of need.
So,
Now we're at the issue of not having money and funding to provide the service to the citizen.
so we agree it's about money right now, right? Sure. Let's just start here. Okay, thank you. So the $5.5 million I wanted to get out of you before you left, so if you'd come back up, since they can't really hear you on the video, are you proposing that $5.5 million every year, or is it just what our immediate needs are?
well, that was the annual budget.
Okay, all right, I just needed to hear that. I was not sure. Okay.
And to what he's saying behind me, that is $5.5 million going to be the end all? No, as we grow, there would need.
It would have to grow proportionally.
Yes. So as the need, kind of like with the subsidy increase, I asked for a $10,000 subsidy increase. And then I'm pretty sure, I told everybody, look, this is probably not going to be the end. I may come back and ask for 1 or 2 or 3% down the road, but, is doing a 5% fixed load on $5.5 million every year doable? Well, what if we only grow by 1 or 2% in a span of time?
Well, let me ask you this one too. We talked the other day, and you said that you kind of gave me some numbers here, gave us some subsidies, insurance, vehicle maintenance, work comp, blah blah blah, $532,000.
Correct.
And then you also gave us a number of $650,000 a year on truck rotation refurbishment. Is that correct? So we're spending right now about 1.2. Is that right?
Pretty close, yes.
And is this 5.5 minus that, or is it in addition to?
Well, if we were to look at trying to put some kind of plan in place to, for compensated volunteers and for a retirement program, those two items, and then on top of that would be $2 million a year. So that 1.18 that we've got going out now would be part of that $2 million. And so altogether total would be about 5.2, but that would include not only the compensated volunteers and retirement for all of the departments, that would also include $2 million a year going towards capital expenses and engine refurbs or replacements or pumper or tanker purchases and that kind of thing.
Okay, so I'm sorry, could I ask this again then? So the 5.5 that you gave us does include the 1.2 that we're already doing?
Correct.
So we're talking about an increase with where we are currently of 4.3. Is that?
Roughly.
Okay.
And this is just, I never got exact quotes. This was just numbers I kind of spitballed together and put together to come and talk to y'all and see if this is even something that would be considered.
Okay.
And correct me, but I don't think we don't have it for all 9 fire departments, do you?
What's that?
You have the numbers from all 9 fire departments on their needs for every year?
Well, I sent the email out. I've gotten 3 responses.
Oh, so we've only got 3 out of the 6, so I saw you come up.
3 out of 9.
You get 3 out of 9, so 3 out of 9 is 4 million, Dave. What's the other 6 going to say? So it's going to be more than that. If you've only got 3 responses and you come up with.
Well, my list was just for the year.
For the year, but.
Wait a minute, now I'm really confused. So this 5.5 is just for the tower and?
I think that 5.5 was hiring firefighters to put at every station, man the station, and salaries, and then benefits going forward. There's something that doesn't include, every station is not set up to live in 24 hours a day, so there'll have to be station remodels. But I guess those numbers were for paid employees to run calls 24/7, I think 4-man staffing on whatever apparatus they were running. So that was.
Well, and that included, a portion of that was for capital also, right?
Moving forward,
Yeah. Yeah.
So a nest egg, kind of a Fund 55 for the fire department, okay. The magic,
For future planning apparatus replacement.
That
Okay.
1.1 million that we have now would be towards that 2 million on top of the compensation and the insurance, or the retirement.
For all 9 fire departments.
Yes, sir.
When we got, just because it's my precinct, we got Pecan Plantation that's already putting up $840,000 a year to support their fire department and EMS. So do they get any of that, or are they okay, and I just fund all the rest of them?
Well, that would kind of be up to the HOA whether or not they choose to continue to support their volunteer fire departments the way they do.
So they could not collect the 800, I got a funny feeling that,
Decide that they're going to withdraw, as could Indian Harbor, Day Cordova, the city
Okay.
of Toller, the city of Lipan, city
Sure.
of Crescent. So
got it.
I guess going back to your question, could we sit down and work together? Yes, we could sit down, we could come up with it. But there's no guarantee of funding as Commissioners Courts change, because the promises made today, you guys won't be here, 2 years, 8 years, 10 years down the road. So those commissioners, they don't know the promises that were made by previous commissioners. So as we sit down, and I don't know that we could come up with numbers. So I want to put a Station 2 at the south end of Toller. We have the largest district in the county. We cover 150 square miles. So we might have a 16-minute response if we were at the station to get to Biloxi. So I plan to add a Station 2 to decrease response time. So those people can, a medical or a fire, they can receive the same service as they get in the city of Toller. So I would definitely try to work together, but I honestly don't know that the county would come up with the funding to replace equipment, build stations, and someday, 20 years from now, it may be 10 years from now, we're going to need a paid fire department, or that's a staff, not a staffed fire department. So it's coming. Whether we pass an ESD or whether we don't, the burden falls to the commissioners to
Taxpayer.
fund the fire department. And so this is kind of something in the room that nobody talks about. Everybody was against cities annexing, right? So now cities can't forcibly annex people. Well, that forces developers to develop in the county. And now you have a bunch of developments in unincorporated areas. They need fire protection too. So how are we going to pay for that? So just things to think about as we move forward. That's how we're going to pay for it. It's not going to get cheaper. And
It's not a money-making business, it's
Yeah.
a service.
yeah, we're not in it to make money. We're doing it for free now.
I got another comment, young lady. Would you have a comment? Pull that mic down so we can get you
My
on.
name is Tina Brown. I am Brent Wilson's mother-in-law. We've had many conversations on this. I'd like to address your statement, like your question is like, what options are there? I see 2 options. You can either fund the fire department through the county, or you can do an ESD. Are there, I haven't seen anybody talk about any other options. And if you can't fund the fire departments better than what they're being funded now, then I don't see why this doesn't go to the people to vote on. I mean, we're only talking about one little district right now. I'm not really good at speaking in public.
That's all
I'm better at voicing my opinion loudly in private.
Well, I don't think anybody,
So this is a little out of element.
but I don't think anybody up here on the court said we weren't willing to fund the fire department, have we?
You do fund
Yeah.
them. You're not funding them to their needs.
Well,
I mean, okay, so.
again, back to our fire marshal, tell us what your needs are, and that's what we're doing right now. We're trying to get to that. And
5.2 in range of what you could do. I mean, you guys can say that now, 5.2,
Well-
yes or no?
well,
Here's the point, at some point, you have to ask them to give them the
yes,
opportunity to.
so we can put it in a budget and fund it. I'm not,
Back to me here.
Okay,
Here.
all right.
Why are we here today? I thought we were here to discuss getting the ESD on the ballot. Is that not what this is about?
No.
It's not. This was not a workshop. I mean, have these guys not jumped through all of your hoops to get everything, all the Ts crossed and the Is dotted to get it on the ballot for their people?
The point
I think
the point of the workshop was to help them understand what it is they're being asked in the first place.
Okay, but yeah, to put it on the ballot for those people.
Well,
it's their
we still have
district.
the public hearing to go.
Well, that would be great, because I blasted this yesterday on Facebook when I found out about it, and you see how many citizens are here. Nobody knows about this. I've had many very loud conversations with my son-in-law. And I have learned a lot more coming here today and listening. Most people are not going to come to listen to anything. And I mean, they're just not. There needs to be more openness, or I don't know. There needs to be more community meetings. And they don't need to be at 9 o'clock on a Thursday. And I realize this is,
What time would work good for you?
well, I'm here.
No, I'm talking about
But I only found out when this meeting was yesterday. The county.
It was posted last week. It was posted on the county sites last week.
Most people do not like go to the county
Okay.
side and see what's, I mean, it just, I thought we were here to, I mean, I know this is a workshop, but now we seem to be talking about a budget workshop. I didn't think this was a budget workshop. I thought this was a workshop to see whether or not it is okay to put it on the ballot to those people. I do not think, in my opinion, if it goes to the budget, if it goes to the ballot, I don't think it'll pass. People don't want to pay more taxes. But it's going to get people talking about it and figuring out solutions for fire protection, and not just fire protection, but EMS. The whole thing for everybody in this county. I'm kind of like, we do not need 9 ESDs in this little county. That is too many chiefs up here, and it's just too much. So I think it needs to be put on the ballot for Cordova citizens to vote on. They're going to vote it down. We're going to get a committee. We're going to figure out how to do it countywide. That's my opinion.
Thank you.
Can I make a quick comment for you on the participation part? I think most of the people in here that have been on the fire department will tell you that when a disaster happens, you have everyone's attention. When they're not being affected by it at the moment, most people don't care what's going on in the background.
So wait, we need to have this meeting after we have a giant fire across the county?
That's usually when you have your greatest participation and then
Can
donation.
you get them to schedule that? I don't know.
I want to say this. I want you here every Tuesday or every other Tuesday to Commissioner's Court. You're kind of a lot of fun. I like having you around.
Yeah, especially the first Tuesday of the month. The first Tuesday, the second Tuesday of the month is our first meeting.
I need to be able to bring something in here to drink.
Yeah, you can.
This is one of the things that we're really hamstrung with is we can't sit together and talk about anything. We have to have a publicly noticed meeting in order for us to sit and exchange ideas. So through this mechanism right here, we're able to discuss and explore other potential options. And I think that's what my question was, is there something else we can do? Not what are our needs? Where do we meet on this? Or is this just, you don't want to negotiate about anything else, let's just put it here. That was my question of what options do we have? Are we willing to sit down and look at this? We need funding for our fire departments. There is no question of that, and nobody sitting in here is saying that it's not. Firefighting is expensive. I've been on the other side of trying to make those budgets, of doing fundraisers, but the answer is, if it doesn't succeed for Cordova, this is a discussion that now we're behind because we have to call another meeting, another workshop to get in to make it work. And
Why do you need another workshop? Is this workshop not going to convince you?
to figure out how to fund the fire departments, not for the ESD. I'm saying this is a ball that we need to start rolling right now, contingent to a possible failure of the ESD election. So these are things that we need to be looking now down the road, and also I'm still a little questioning, leery. I'm not sure exactly what the word is. I'm like you. There doesn't need to be 9 ESDs in this county. How willing is this ESD that's going to be put into place going to be to expansion? And how willing are those people going to be to join that ESD? And I think that that's something that we very much need to consider for the future. It's a future issue that we need to look at.
I'm glad that we were looking towards the future, that we were like looking, because one of the biggest problems that we have had is like, you're just worried about your house. You're not worried about mine. Of course, mine is in Toller's district, so, I mean,
Which is one of the better
but you're not, but I'm glad that y'all are looking at the whole picture, because sometimes you can get sidetracked and only look at what you want in your little area, and I understand that, but I think your job is to look out for all of us, and that we need dedicated money going to the fire department. I mean, you ask these people, you ask these fire chiefs how much their budget was or how much the county gives to them. Did you ask them how much they have to raise every year in fundraisers? Have you done a fundraiser? That is
Yes, I have.
my kids used to bring home fundraiser, I'm like, can I just give you $50 and be done with it? It's like nobody likes to fundraise, but these guys fundraise, guys and girls, they fundraise all the time for everything, I mean, water and you know, I mean, everything. And they ask the community to bring them food and snacks. I mean, Toller just sent out something the other day asking for donations. I mean,
So here's with all due respect, here's the dilemma. I think fundraisers are great because it connects you to your citizens. But here's the deal, the government is by the point of a gun. Once we impose a tax, that's forced on everybody. And it's
on those people in that district.
But see, you've come.
If Dave Cordova passes this, I won't pay more taxes. Just Dave Cordova will.
Just so you know.
I know.
Toller's right behind him. You don't get one. She gets it, you're out.
But
Just kidding.
this is about Dave Cordova's petition, right? Is that what we're here about Dave Cordova's petition? Not
No,
Toller?
it's not. It's not about the petition, but if you want to.
Oh, well, then I'm just misinformed. I thought that's what this was about.
Come on, Brent.
May 25th.
Yes,
To discuss the
and that's my daughter's birthday, so I'm not sure I'll be here.
Okay. One thing that Mr. Fry brought up that was already on my list to ask not just De Cordova Fire, but all 9 departments. Within 30 days, I would like to look at your last 3 years' budget audited budget for the last 3 years. That way we can see, the monies and how they're being appropriated. We as a court, not, me individually. We need to see, where did your monies go? Not just what the county.
I can tell you where it went, right back into the department.
I can tell you that I requested that exact information last March, April. I'd asked for that very.
Okay.
So that we can.
It would help us to know,
So-
in your case, in De Cordova, how many EMS calls are you making versus fire, and how many are they making, so we can kind of see. Maybe we need to fund EMS more than we do fire, I don't know.
So also,
Well, but an EMS vehicle can go out there quicker than a fire truck or a tanker. So you've got an EMS? Okay.
I want to address that. When you say you want that audit or audit budget, whatever they've spent the last few years, that's something else. The people who are doing that, I'm guessing, is the fire chief. And he's doing all of that voluntarily. He's not just fighting
I'm not
fires, but
saying
he's doing
not. I think,
paperwork.
But
You know-
before we can go forward.
Right.
you
But
know,
but
and
like
we
when you
need-
were talking about all the fire departments being equal, Granbury Fire
They're
Department
not
has
equal.
paid employees.
I'll sit here
I mean,
and
they
tell
had-
you,
yeah.
all 9
Well,
departments
yeah,
are
but,
not
I mean,
equal.
Who
and
does
they're-
that paperwork for you? And I don't know how often these fire departments change fire chiefs and whether or not, it's like there ought to be some, I I don't know.
So-
Transparency?
So ma'am, just like them, there's a lot of stuff about the fire service here that you don't have an understanding of.
Brent Wilson's my son-in-law. You met him? I know a lot about this fire department. I mean, about this fire in this county. My brother-in-law is also a firefighter. I have a couple of cousins. I mean, it's not like, fire department, you don't need them until you do. You know? You don't even think about them till you do, till you need them. Toller's been out to my house one time for a emergency, not a fire. They were Johnny on the spot. I mean, you call, I can't even, I can put down my driveway and call, I see smoke. They're there before I can get in the house.
Well, so why do you want
Thank
to fix
you.
something that's not broken?
We're tired.
Oh.
Because
Okay.
lack of volunteers,
Okay.
lack of people don't have time, and there's, these guys, they just have a passion, and they need to be compensated in some way. Whether it's an ESD or a county-wide tax, I don't know,
Okay.
but that's my say.
Okay. Ken, do you, so.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll be done. I'll be brief. I have a question.
Okay.
I feel like we're sliding on forward progress. So first question is, or first statement is, we do this for free. I'm a city councilman in Toller. I'm chief of the fire department. I don't make any money. So in compensation for y'all sitting up here and listening to us, you make a salary every year plus a retirement. Would you do that for free? So my actual question is, so we can debate all this stuff, ESD, not ESD. Are we going to fund fire departments for the $5.3 million? So right now, with current revenues, is it even a possibility for, like you said, maybe. So is it even a possibility to fund the fire department at $5.3 million a year? If that's not even the case, what are we arguing about? So
I don't know as though that 5.3 is necessarily a hard, fast
Sure,
number.
we can fund it. We can raise taxes, man.
right, that's what. But if are you seriously going to do it? That's
Well,
the question I'm asking.
well,
So just as a parting question.
We can't make that decision here. We're going to get into the budget and see what money we've got, see if we have to raise taxes to fund what,
So Matt, just as a heads up, they've had like 2 days to chew on this.
Right, but they know what the budgets are, the annual budget. So I'm just something to chew on. Is that even a possibility for you to say yes? If it is, hey man, let's talk. If it's not, then let's keep doing what we're doing.
well,
Form an ESD.
Good question.
we do have a revenue ceiling, so we can only raise taxes so much, and then it's out of our hands. It'll come back to you guys to vote a tax if we go over the revenue cap. So there's a lot of things involved in this. It's just not us sitting up here making a decision today that we can fund $5 million, guys. It's,
No, I'm not asking
okay.
you like that. I'm just saying.
First
is it even a possibility?
First I've heard of needing $5 million a year to fund the fire department. So yes, we're going to look at.
$5 million to fire only?
Again, well, I don't know. It depends on how much the sheriff wants. If he wants to give up $5 million, I give it to you.
That's pretty good.
That's where we are right now.
Yeah.
That's exactly the
Okay.
circle.
So anyway, yeah,
That's all.
Can
no, okay.
I make one little comment about that?
Sure.
So how come we expect our fire department to work for free, but not our sheriff's department?
Ask the sheriff.
Huh?
Ask the sheriff. He's an elected official. Ask
I
him.
know, but you set the budget.
We don't, he's
I
the
mean-
sheriff.
But why do we expect firefighters to work for free? Why don't, do you work for free?
That's a good,
Are you
that's a
doing
good
this for
question. Why
free?
would you- I guess.
I've got a question on that. I mean,
Okay.
how long have we been doing what we've been doing?
What?
Volunteer fire. department.
Volunteer fire departments.
Long time. Are you saying there's
That was
not
my
a better way?
That's my question. Thank you. That's all I have.
Well, how long has there been paid fire departments across this country?
Just as long.
Most volunteer departments go away because they can't handle the calls that come in, and the service is the same.
They're community-specific, time-specific, circumstance-specific.
Which is why we want.
And that's why we're here talking about this. I mean, our system has worked pretty well up until now. Now we're saying that it doesn't work at all.
No, that's not what we're saying. That's not what any of us are saying.
So that's what we're looking at,
Okay.
ma'am, is we're trying to get to I mean, you agree that some little West Texas town is not going to have a paid fire department, right?
I don't live in West Texas, I don't know.
Okay, so
But-
you live here.
Yes.
But you said.
And I've been fine, I mean, but according to the news, Hood County is the 9th fastest growing county in the United States. We are growing. Fire calls are growing. Emergency medical calls are growing. What happens with all these volunteers? Like, you know what, I just don't have time for this anymore. What are you going to do then? What are we going to do?
Let me ask you this. Who does stuff for free? You? You?
Too much.
You?
Do what was the question? I'm sorry.
I don't.
I do.
I do love
I've
volunteering.
volunteered for
I volunteer
14
for
years. I
lots of
was chief for 8 years.
I work for a living, I pay taxes. Now, then you're asking these people to come up here, and which I understand, it takes a certain type of people to be a volunteer. I used to be a volunteer when I lived up in Fort Worth, close to Benbrook. I don't do it anymore. You know why? Because I work for a living. I work for a living to pay taxes. I work for a living to pay all of y'all, okay? I work for a living for everybody, okay? Sooner or later, the volunteers are going to go away. Because people have to make a living for their company, for their families. You asked a while ago, how long has volunteers been going on? Since time. How long is it going to last? We don't know. But we do know that sooner or later, Hood County, which is growing, and we all know it's growing. If you don't believe it, get on your phone. You can look it up. How many people has grown into Hood County from year to year to year? You're going to have to, sooner or later, vote in a paid fire department. Look at this. Look at your fires that come in from 6 o'clock in the evening to 6 o'clock in the morning. How many people show up when the buzzer goes off? Look at how many people show up from 6 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock in the evening. People have to work and make a living. Now think about this. This is going to have to go in front of the tax people sooner or later. All of us that pay taxes, the tax people. So y'all can make a decision whatever you want to. I don't care. If my taxes go up, I hate my taxes going up. Trust me, I do. Am I willing to vote for my taxes to go up towards a fire department? Yes. You know why? I'll tell you why. Because when I pick up that phone and I call 911, I want them people there now. I don't have to send out a code and have people come, get off their tractor, shut their business, get off their toilet, to run down there and get in a fire truck and come here. You know how much time that takes? It takes a lot of time. If you can get them, because they're volunteer.
So do you have an estimate then of how many paid firemen we would need in this county?
It's not my job.
Well, wait a minute, we gave you a chance to talk to, so could you give me an estimate of how many paid paid firemen we would need in this county to be available 24/7 to get service the needs you are describing this? How many would that take?
I cannot answer that. I cannot answer that. But I have sat here and listened to other departments talk about they have volunteer and they have regulars. Some of them say it don't work, some of them says it doesn't work. I work for a business that has union shop and non-union shop people. We all work together. We all work together to accomplish one thing, to get the product out. Now, you have in each fire department station, if you got 4 or 5 or 2 or 3, I don't know what the number would be.
But what we're looking at, I mean, I'm trying to get to what you're advocating. You want somebody to be available when you pick up the phone to come right now And so what I want to know, because what we're being asked to do, or what would happen, is imposing a tax on all the taxpayers. And what would that cost to have someone available 24/7 to pick up the phone? And I don't know, I'm just asking.
Let me ask you.
That are paid.
Yes.
Because it seems like, in your opinion, having a paid fire department is what we need.
Let me ask you this. How much money does this county give to all the fire departments per year?
1.2 million.
Okay, 1.2 million. Okay. How many people live throughout the Hood County?
I'm sorry?
How many people live out in Hood County that pays taxes?
That live in Hood County?
Yes.
Every property owner that lives in Hood County pays ad valorem. I don't know. I don't have that number.
Hey, can you come over to the mic to make sure that everything's,
People probably?
No, not
65,000
that many
people?
property owners.
Okay. How much money would it take for them to pay a tax to make up that 1 point something?
Well, you can figure about, in fact, Commissioner Andrews and I spoke about this yesterday. We kind of figure that a half cent to 7/10 of a cent, no, excuse me, a penny would get you about 600,000 income.
60, yeah.
1 penny, one penny on the ad valorem tax per 100 evaluation.
Okay.
So you just do the math on that. Like, for instance, if we're talking, they need $5 million, what, $4 million more than we are already contributing into the equation, you're talking about another 3.5 cents on the tax bill. Is that about right?
It's 8.3 according to the calculation
My question is,
for 6
why is this
$5
not
million.
put to the people?
4.5.
We vote on everything there is anyway.
That's what we're trying to do here, is, I mean, surely we can ask questions and hear both sides, and
Understand.
that's what we're trying to do. You know, we're having a hearing on May the 25th. This is our second, well, is it our second or third? Second workshop. That's what we're doing, is trying to hash this out. And I appreciate your input. I really do.
What is your opinion on this? Do you think they ought to
I
have
haven't,
this?
I'm going back and forth. I mean, I'm here, I'm trying to listen to all sides of this equation. And I'm hearing, for instance, that it's kind of situation specific, area specific. How many people, like in Parker County, we just heard from the gentleman that it's ESD 1 over there is working real well. They've been going for 23 years. Parker County is 3 times bigger than us, and they have a pretty good bit of revenue coming in. They're operating. We've been given a number of $5.5 million here. That's about almost what they're getting.
Okay, let me ask you this
I guess to
question too.
clarify, they don't cover the entire county. They cover a small portion of the county.
310 square miles. How much of that is Parker County? The county is that?
It's 1/3
So a third of the county.
square miles.
Who pays for their training here? I mean, all of the volunteer fire department, who pays for the training?
Kevin, you got.
fundraising, subsidy, the Forest Service has grants. Please step up to the microphone to make sure that, everything can get recorded.
The reason I ask this is because right now, Hood County is covered up with gas wells. Okay? We got a ton of gas wells. Now, how many people out here that's in the volunteer that know how to work gas wells, gas well fires, explosions? Just gas itself leaking out. Have they been trained? Have they been properly trained? Do they have the proper equipment for it all? No, they don't. Do you think they do? Do you think they've been trained? It takes money to train these people. I mean, we can sit here and beat this dog to death, but it comes down to the same thing. It's going to have to come down to the people. Y'all sit here and tell your figures on this and tell your figures on that, tell your figures on that, but when it comes down to the same thing, what is the number one thing we're going to have to do? we're gonna have to finally sit down and say, this is what it's gonna take. You can't have 9 or 45 bosses over 9 fire departments.
How do we get to that point?
I'll tell you how you do it.
Okay.
You take Lipan,
Yep.
Toller, whoever else is in this, and their community vote for a person. You do not do a brother-in-law deal. And we all know what the brother-in-law deal is. Oh, yeah, this is my brother-in-law.
Sure.
He needs
No,
a job.
but what's the legal mechanism? Because right now, what I'm saying is, right now, we're having, well, there's one petition on the table with De Cordova. Toller's nearing that. So we've already got 2 petitions on the table. At this point in time, how do we stop the 45 commissioners and 9 different ESDs?
Everything has to be voted on.
I understand, and that's what I'm saying is these are the kind of things that we're exploring here. It might seem like we're beating a dead horse, but I don't think that we are. We're looking for options, we're looking for avenues, when we're trying to answer other questions that are pertinent to the future. And this is, we all agree, there's a money problem here. We need more money. Is it, okay, so we've got 1.1 million or 1.2 million we spent last year. There's a discussion of $1 million extra in sales tax. Do we go before the voters of the whole county and say, hey, can we get 3% or 3 cents tax increase? Because it would have to be. But this is achieving what you're asking for, because then it's one county-wide that meets the, but we're not, what we're talking about is not county-wide right now. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know. You're only talking about one place right now.
Right.
But look at, a while ago, there was a guy up here from Crescent. Look how much money they gather. Do you have any idea how much money they gather a year?
Yeah. What do you say, $250,000? Somewhere in that, 240, somewhere around that ballpark? Yeah.
Plus
apparatus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ron.
So,
That's the reason I asked to look at all their budgets. And I'm serious about that request.
what's the answer to it?
Well, I mean, I don't think it's an easy answer or some way to come up with it. There is one of the potential answers is an ESD, and that's something we're exploring now. It's also, is there another answer that makes sense, that includes everybody, that's, and I'm not saying one way or another. I'm not pro nor con. I'm saying the fire departments need money. We know that. How do we get there?
Only one way.
But it's potential for fragmented, because it's two ESDs that are kind of on the table right now. And these have to be done through elections, and
Exactly right.
but it's all fragmented, and there's more than one path to get to one way, but there's a whole lot of detours that get us to 100 different ways. So, in order to get everybody to the same place, we all need to be together to figure out what our potential problems are now.
You got a big job to do, don't you?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
What we're doing, trying to.
I need to see you when this is over.
Okay. Ken, you got something you want to do real quick?
Yes, I'm going to try and do it real quick. I kind of need a bathroom break. I'm sure I'm not the only one in the room. All right, I appreciate that y'all are letting an outsider come in. I am the attorney for De Cordova, obviously, but that you're letting me come in and assist you with this process, and that's really why I'm here. Yes, I have an advocacy, but not necessarily, I'm not advocating for an ESD or against it. That's what they've done. They've enlisted me to help them get that process done. But I would like to kind of refocus real quick. And I know from the last meeting, we were split up. Y'all were split up. So you weren't all able to hear what I said the first time or the second time. I tried to not replow ground. So I'd like to be able to answer some questions, legal questions and stuff like that. I am a commissioner in Travis County. I am a volunteer firefighter for 30 years. But I do want to kind of refocus some things, because I've heard some very good points. And I think the best thing about this is that we're now having a very concerted discussion about this issue, and everybody's here working towards the same goal. But an ESD will not fix topography. It will not fix geography. It may fix finances. okay? But that's one of the things that y'all have to think about in doing this is, again, can you even reach it? And I think half of you were here for this, half of you weren't, but, you know, in Travis County, I'd probably have 4 based on geography. We've got the Colorado running east-west through the middle and I-35 running north-south. So you'd have this northwest part that's on the other side of Lake Travis and everything that you can't get to without going to Williamson County or Burnett County. So that'd be 1. Northeast would be 1. Southeast is 1. And then the west, where we have 6 or 7, would be 1. That's one of the things that y'all are going to have to consider. They're going to have to consider. I think one thing to take away from Commissioner Jack's presentation is that it started in Springtown. It was a very regional district. They had some visions, and not to correct him, but they started out as a rural fire prevention district, and they came to Austin, and we talked, and they hired me to convert them to an emergency services district. I won't go into why that all happens, but it does come with a different tax rate, 3 cents versus 10 cents. But we then converted, and we have now annexed basically to the east, Reno and all this area, or not all of that, but down to Aledo, and then we've actually got Peaster, and I can't remember the second one. Poolville, which is over to the western areas. So the point is that the ESD structure can get you there. And to answer Commissioner Andrews' question, I see personally, I know of no other options than the 2 that are on the table. An ESD, whether 9 or 1 or 4 or whatever makes sense, or the county continuing to fund the volunteer fire departments. Obviously, the paid staff would not be county employees. You would pay them to have the paid staff, because I really don't think a county itself can form a fire department per se. So with that said, I wanted to kind of come back and focus on some issues, and y'all interrupt me if you have a question while I'm going through this. One of the issues that I had that I think we need to clarify is that this is not a volunteer versus paid staff issue at all. In fact, that's really not even the issue. It's not even almost an issue. I hear it come up, you know, you're getting rid of the volunteers. No, that's not what an ESD does. Most of the ESDs out of the 335 in the state are still all volunteer, or maybe supplemented by some paid staff. I happen to be still a volunteer for 2 different departments, 2 different districts that are really full-time fire departments supplemented by volunteer staff. But that is, as Commissioner Eagle said, that is a very time-specific, fact-specific kind of decision that happens. My oldest son is on South Hayes, which is all around San Marcos. It's a volunteer fire department. It has been forever and probably will be for a long time. They also have a lot of kids from the college, you know, who are involved in that. The issue of volunteerism has always been decreasing. We're fighting for volunteers. People don't understand it. They don't know about it. They think they don't have enough time. But with that said, I want to get away from this sort of whole issue of paid versus volunteer. And then to go back to what Chief Fry said is it's not just paid versus volunteer. It's not ISO rating. The ISO, as I said earlier, and I don't know if both of sides heard it, so I apologize if I'm replowing that ground, that's really not a selling point. That is something you work towards, but ISO is going to be, you know, 40 to 50% water supply. Neither you as a county government, nobody but a city has that kind of ability. You have very limited development ability, regulatory ability, you have very limited subdivision ability. You can't force those subdividers to put that in. And a fire code, for example, may be a good thing here, all right? But you can't do it as a county. An ESD can give you that option, okay? Now, whether a fire code is a good idea because it doesn't necessarily fit in the rural area. And I guarantee you McDonald's or Walmart or whatever is going to plop down the building even if there's no water supply with all the pipes in it ready to go, because that's just how they build them. To kind of go back, and I don't know about the academy thing, but to answer your question, I think theirs would be more of a demographic issue than it would be a fire code issue or other things. And when you're in a rural area, it does make it more expensive for people. But again, a lot of the businesses you want to attract, as opposed to the businesses that you're growing here, are used to fire codes, okay? It really does affect the churches and the people who want to build wedding event barns and stuff and find out they have to sprinkler it. So again, coming back to that, I also want to talk about the removal, that was mentioned, removal of commissioners. They are, just so you know, they're county officers just like you are. They can be removed by a district court process for drunkenness or whatever else is in the statute. You don't have the ability necessarily to remove them. You can actually, under the statute, set up basically the same process where you're basically the trier of fact to remove a commissioner if they violate some of those laws. So you can adopt that process. You also have the ability, because you control that board every 2 years as to who's on the majority of it, because they have a 2-year term from January 1st to December 31st, 2 years, and it's staggered between 3 and 2. So it's, you know, you don't get reelected, I guess, is basically the way to look at it. So I want y'all to understand that as well. There are ESDs that are elected. I think, and this is just Ken Campbell's personal opinion here, when these things came to Nebraska in the 30s and the 40s and came to Texas in 47, one of the issues is that everybody was appointed, so that you elected officials could control who's on that board. All right, so with that said, they couldn't figure out what to do if you had an ESD in more than one county, especially with 5 people on that board. Who gets 2, who gets 3, how do they do that? So they just said, we'll just elect them. Okay, and now we've had some like Harris County where the county just said, I don't want to have anything to do with this anymore. Y'all go get elected. Same thing in Smith County, same thing in some of these other specific areas. So I think that's important to understand. Now, will it be 45 commissioners to find? We have, like I said, we have 13 ESDs, 14 ESDs in Travis County, really 13, but we have some overlays. It is hard to find people for that. So again, that's one of the things y'all are going to have to consider. Is this a geography issue? Is this a topography issue? Is this, 45 people, or is it 20 or 15? And these guys will probably ultimately figure that out for you, because I think they're hearing very clearly that, 9 is probably not a good idea, and I don't know if 9 is a good idea, because what I don't want to be is the 9th one that's the last one that ends up with whatever's less that nobody wants, okay? So that's very important to think about. So these guys need to go back and think about that. We obviously have DeCordova's issue on the table coming up next month. As far as fire codes go themselves, there's really just the International Fire Code. That's what everybody uses, whether it's the 2012, 2015. He is right, though. You can have all these exceptions and things like that. But generally, everybody does the same fire code. So just so you know that. Annexation and merger, and again, you have to take a holistic approach, and I know I'm from Austin, so you're thinking I'm using the holistic with just an H on it, but I'm talking WHOL. Let's look at the whole thing. Annexation could be a way to go. You could start here and then work into it, and more to the point, the others who are iffy on this, the other VFDs who are iffy on this, once they see it working, they may want to get in on that. Now, there again, very strong identity community issues. I mean, we're CBAR because that's the ranch that we were formed out of. Westlake is Westlake. We're both in the Eanes School District. Westlake's the rich people. They didn't want us to be involved. It would have been smart just to have the geographical boundaries of Eanes Independent School District. But we were the poor people, so they didn't want to have us in there, so we had to form our own. We now work together. But that's the kind of things you have to take into account, is the community, who belongs to what. But I don't care. Call it the CBAR station. You call it whatever you want. I'm still going to be there. I'm still going to volunteer, and I'm still going to serve those people. I also wanted to mention the actual revenue factors that we're talking about. The ad valorem tax, which everybody, of course, hates. Well, everybody hates taxes in general, and those of you who are for the first part know that I believe that it's basically sin that we're talking about, and we have to kind of work through that. But there is the other revenue stream of sales tax, which could be an option. Palo Pinto County, that ESD that does the EMS in the Santo area, it is all sales tax right now. Jeff Davis County, which does fire and EMS, it's sales, or it has been sales tax. They may be going to property tax, both of them, just to have a steady funding source, because sales tax can be volatile and hard to budget on. So with all that said, I was trying to bring it back down to why we're here today. Do y'all have any questions for me? Has there been some legal question that's come up that I can assist you with, or at least give you an idea of how it's worked in some other areas? So we have beat this dog. Okay, very good. I just wanted to make sure, and I wanted to wrap it up a little bit.
Yeah, and I'm still hunting and gathering here, so, but I feel, I know I can call you, and I've got your 3-inch thick treatise, so.
Well, we're going to take a bathroom break, and then we'll have the test on that.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, I'm glad we're having this conversation, and I mean, I certainly understand the the passion that I've seen here today. It's understandable, and what we're just trying to get to the, we're charged with the duty to even decide if it goes to a ballot. And I can read the law on that, so, that's what we're trying to do, is to sort through that.
Well, I'm here as a resource. Obviously, I represent a client, but I'm here objectively for whatever you need and whatever questions you have. And I thank you very much graciously for having me up here again.
Okay, anybody else got any closing remarks for that? If not, I think it's noon. We'll adjourn. Thank you very much.